Hello, dear viewers. Support me by subscribing to my channel and share my video if you like it. And also, make sure you comment your thoughts. Now let's start the video. Juju. Jon, missed you, she said, and Jon bent down to hug her with his good arm. Missed you too, princess, and you too, Balerion. You missed Balin? Of course I did. Jon smiled. Ouchie, Jon, make better, Joy said, touching his arm and eye before leaning forward to kiss the scar on his eye. Thank you, Joy. All better now, Jon said, and Joy looked to him before he nodded. Come, she said, holding her hand out to him. Tyrion couldn't help but laugh as Jon sat down beside her. He watched as the boy gave his sister an apologetic look, but she waved it off and talked to Loras, thankfully understanding. His uncles came in, then followed a few minutes later by Jaime and his wife, the dress she wore this time even more beautiful than the one she had on earlier. When they sat down, dinner began. All talk at the table was just simple, pleasant things, with Joy eagerly telling Jon all her adventures that he'd missed while being away. He found himself watching Daisy more and more. They'd only briefly talked, and he'd yet to really get to know the woman. He found, though, that he already liked her simply because of how happy she made his brother. It was clear to him just how much in love with each other they both were. How his brother's face lit up when she smiled. He couldn't envy his brother that piece of happiness, nor would he ever wish to, but it did make his own loneliness feel more real. Once they'd finished dinner and Jon left with Joy to read her a story, his sister deciding to join them, he found himself sitting enjoying a quiet drink when Daisy came over to sit beside him. He looked to her in confusion and found himself lost for words for a moment, but it was she who spoke first anyway. I never really got the chance to talk to you today, my lord. Please, my lady, call me Tyrion, he said, happy to find some words. Daisy, he replied with a smile. I hope to get to know you better, Tyrion. Jaime often speaks of his clever younger brother. He's really quite proud of you, you know, she said, and Tyrion felt the little surge in his heart. He's a good brother. He says the same about you, Tyrion, she said with a smile. He was about to say something back when Jaime spoke. Brother, I think we need to talk. Uncles, Aunt, you too. Can you all meet me in my solar in an hour? He heard his brother say. Of course. He saw Daisy look to Jaime and saw his brother smile at her before he turned and whispered something into Loras's ear which the boy nodded at before leaving. He wondered what it was, then remembered Jaime had asked him to gather the rest of their family tonight. Had he forgotten? He had, though it seemed his brother had not. He finished his drink and went to his room. For some reason he was feeling a little nervous. As he was walking he felt it and turned. Ghost was there with the black pup, both of them pulling on his breeches. I missed you too, Ghost, he said, laughing. Jon. After speaking to Alla's family, he had been feeling very down. He knew that thanks to Jaime, he'd been able to reassure them, but it still hurt, that was all he could do. He felt a bit better after speaking to Arthur and Richard. He had set things in motion, things would happen soon. Arthur would find Lorch and he closed his eyes as the tears threatened to fall. Reginas, he thought, picturing her face. As for Richard, he would find those responsible for Alla's death, and they would pay for it dearly. Arriving back at the Rock and heading to dinner, he was surprised at Joy coming to him. He had expected it to be harder given how she had acted earlier in the day, though when he saw both Daisy and Jaina smile, perhaps it was them he owed thanks to. He felt the weight of the world being lifted off his shoulders when she kissed his head. Such a sweet little thing, and yet it brought him more comfort than any words had today. Sitting with her laughing as she told stories, both fun and reprimanding at the same time, how she had gotten dresses made or gone to the sea to collect shells, how she couldn't ride apples because he was not here, how she and Balin had to go on their own ventures without him, and how she, Martin, and Willem played the pinch game, whatever that was. He was glad Sansa seemed fine with him spending time with Joy, and thanked Loras for being there for his sister. When it came to story time, though, he had thought that a fight may break out. Joy, ready for your story? Story, Balin here, story too, isn't that right? Balin, you want story? See, Balin wants story, Jon? Balin can hear too, Jon said, smiling. He looked to his sister, who looked at him in hope. Want to join us, Sansa? He saw the frown on Joy's face, but she kept silent. When they got to the room, though, she almost caught Sansa in the door. He looked at her, and she was shaking her head, and he looked to Sansa, who was bordering on the line between tears and fury. Joy, Sansa wishes to hear the story too. No. Joy. No. Please, Joy, it's her first night here. She's far from home. Can she join us? He watched as Joy knelt down to Balerion, whispering in his ear before the cat looked at him. He closed his eyes, and while the door was closed, he whispered, Sister, before he opened them. Balin no like Jon. Why don't we see? If Balerion says it's all right, then Sansa can join us. All right, she huffed, and Jon tried not to laugh. Sansa, why don't you see if Balerion will allow you to join us? He said, looking to his sister with a smile. She walked over, knelt down, and asked the cat, and he watched Joy's eyes widen as Balerion licked his sister's hand before the cat walked over to Fang and looked closely at the she-wolf and then turned to climb into the basket on the floor. With that war averted, he waited until Alessia came to help Joy undress and get into her night clothes, and when she was put in the bed, he and Sansa sat down and he told her a story of a brave knight and the king he served so honorably. I didn't mean to intrude, Jon, Sansa said, apologetically, after Joy had gone asleep, and they'd left the room. You didn't, little sister. It's just we've been apart for so long, and she's used to having me to herself. I'm sorry. Don't be. She needs to get used to it. Besides, you're my little sister. You never have to be sorry with me. Jon said, and she smiled. How was your day? He asked as they walked to her room. Oh, Jon, this place, I've never dreamed this big. It's amazing, the Golden Galley, the vaults, the cliffs, even the beach. Jon, why did you never tell me about a beach? It's so warm, she said, laughing as she raised her hand to hit his chest, only to stop herself. We'll be heading to Lannisport tomorrow. Lorch's family are due to arrive. So soon, she said, panicking. Don't worry, Sansa. They'll love you. Beside, if they don't, we'll just set our wolves on them, Jon said, and Fang barked, making them laugh. He led his sister to her room and said goodnight to her, turning to walk back towards his own. On his way there, Loras found him and told him Jaime wished him to come to his solar. It was time. Jon nodded and asked Loras to come back to his room as he needed to get the chest with his eggs and his mother's letter. Once they'd done that, they headed to Jaime's solar. Walking in, he felt more nervous than ever. This was it. The moment of truth had finally arrived. Jaime. Daisy had gone to their room. Not that he didn't wish her here, but more she felt it needed to be family. And while she was now part of their family, perhaps it was best if the others learned what they needed without her presence. He sat quietly for a while, waiting and wondering how this would be accepted before he had too much time to get lost in those thoughts. Tyrion and Garyon arrived and took a seat. Kevan and Jenna not too long later. Still he waited while Tyrion poured wine for the others. Jon and Loras arrived, and Loras carried Jon's chest, and Jaime kicked himself for not remembering. Standing up from his seat, he went and retrieved the other items which proved Jon's birthright, and placed them beside the chest. His uncle looking directly at the covered sword, its shape instantly identifying it as what it was, if not which sword it was. He looked to Jon to see him almost as nervous as he. Loras looked oddly excited, and he couldn't help but wish he and Jon felt the same. You may wonder why I asked you all here. What I'm about to tell you cannot leave this room. Do I have your oaths on that? Of course, brother, Tyrion said, and both his uncles and aunt agreed also. A few years ago, when I returned from the war in the Iron Islands, most of you were surprised as to the squire I brought back. Over the years, I'm certain you, like me, have come to accept Jon as more than just a squire or a ward, but as part of our family, Jaime said, and saw Jon look to see if there were any who didn't agree. Aye, he is, Gurion said, smiling warmly at Jon. Apart from everything else James is, I had another reason why I picked him as a squire. A reason that even Jon didn't find out about until just before we left for King's Landing, and which was why we needed to go north afterward. Is he your son? Jaina asked, surprising them all. No, not by blood, Jaime said, looking at her. Jon is... My name is not Jon Snow. It's Jaehaerys Targaryen. I'm the true-born son of Rhaegar and Lyanna Targaryen, Jon said, interrupting him. What? It can't be. They were married. Wait, you want to put him on the throne? Tyrion said, looking at him. He is the rightful King Tyrion, but more than that, he is the king the realm needs. You saw it. How bad it is. Robert, Jon Arryn, that master of coin of theirs, they're running the realm into the ground. It needs to be stopped, otherwise we'll be drawn into a war not of our choosing. Yet you would have us drawn into one which is, his uncle Kevan said. Is there even any proof of this? Tyrion asked, interrupting before Kevan's question could be answered. There is, Jaime said. Opening the chest, he took out the letters proving the marriage, annulment, and birth announcement. He showed them the maiden cloak and harp, while Jon took the cover off the sword and he watched on as his uncle Garyon looked at it. Is that? Dark sister. Aye, it is, Jon said, unsheathing it and handing it to his uncle, who laughed. So that's why the thin sword. I always wondered, he said, laughing more. What about the children? Asked his aunt, who had been silent until then. What? He said. The children, so we remove Robert and your sister. Why not allow the children take the throne? You've seen Joffrey, aunt? You really want him to take the throne? No, but what about Tommen or even Myrcella? They're not Robert's aunt. They have no claim. Should it come out, we'd be starting a bigger war. Tyrion said, and Jaime was glad for his brother's help. Jon, Jaina said, looking to him, what will you do with the children? Nothing. I'd never harm them, but I don't know, I'd leave it up to my hand to decide. They're his kin after all. His answer seemed to satisfy her. That the children were safe, though, raised the question of Jaime being his hand. Jaime, she said, turning to him, I had intended to spend my life as a Kingsguard guarding my king. Instead, I shall be hand for that king, Jaime said. It was quiet for a few minutes then, no one saying anything, and Jaime felt the nervous energy dissipate and the worry settle. It still hadn't been decided, and he was worried. Also, there had been no outburst, no anger yet, which was even more worrisome. There's something else, Jon said, and Jaime rolled his eyes. No, Jon, not the damn eggs. Not yet. What? My mother left me a letter. It explained some things, but it also asked some questions. I think you should all read it, Jon said, handing Tyrion the letter. Jaime watched as Jenna and then Kevin and finally Garion read the letter. It was his uncle's reaction which surprised him the most. Jarion's face grew angrier and angrier. At one point, he looked like he was about to rip the letter, but seeing Jon, he calmed a little. Fucking Tullys, I've always said it about them. Fucking no good trouts. Uncle, Jaime said. No, I was silent when I lost Brioni because of them, and I did nothing in King's Landing when the floppy fish tried to take Jon's hand. I'll not be silent anymore. Those fucking fishes need to go. Whatever this letter is suggesting about them, I believe it. Fucking bottom feeders. Gerion said angrily before kneeling in front of Jon. I've thought of you as mine own son since you arrived here, Jon, how you treated my girl. There's no one I'd rather serve than you. My king, you have my sword, my counsel, and anything I can help you with. From this day to my last day, Gerion said, and Jon shook his head. Please, my lord, please get up. Think on what you're saying. I welcome your support, truly. You have no idea how much it means to me, but you're angry, you're not thinking right. Don't do anything you may regret. I'll not regret this. Yes, I'm fucking furious, and I have a right to be. But this isn't about that. This is about you, Jon, about who you are and who I know you'll be. You're my king from this day to my last day. Then arise, my lord, I welcome your fealty and promise never to ask you to dishonor yourself or your house. Yaxley smiled. Gerion may be impulsive, but what he said came from his heart, and seeing the expression on his face when he stood up, he knew he was happy with the choice he'd made. As for Jon, he was the happiest he'd seen him in a while. As for the other three, well, that was a different story. And once again, it was Jenna who was ever the voice of practicality. We can't do this alone, Jaime. As big and powerful as we are, we're one kingdom against four. We have the North also, Jon said, and Jenna turned quickly to look at him. A small smile on her face. We do? Aye, my uncle has declared for me, as has Lord Manderley and Dacey's mother, Lady Mage. That will go a long way to bringing the other northern lords, but still it's not enough, Jaina said. We also have the Velaryons and House Derry, Jon said. Yaxley watched the wheels turn in his aunt's head. The Reach, she said, turning to Loras. We've yet to speak to my grandmother, my lady. Lady Olenna is upset with the crown, though. Aunt, I think she can be brought on board, Jaime said. Wait, we're actually doing this? Kevin said. We are brother, Gerion replied. I don't know. I need more time, Kevin said, standing up. I need more time, he turned to walk from the room. I'll go speak to him, Jaina said, following her brother. Jaime sat looking as they left the room, leaving him with Jon, Loras, and Tyrion and Gerion. His uncle looked curiously at the box, while Tyrion drummed his fingers on the table. What else you got in there, Jon? Gerion asked. I can't. Lord Yaxley, could you take the white one out? Loras said, taking the egg out and placing it on the desk. He watched his brother's eyes widen when they saw the egg, his hand reaching out to touch it. Gerion, too, looked at it like it was some strange, unknown thing. Is this a dragon egg? Tyrion asked. Aye, it is. Touch it, my lord, Jon said, and Tyrion placed his hand on it. It's cold, he said, and Gerion reached out to touch it too. Aye, it is. Touch it now, my lords, Jon said when they took their hands off it. He placed his own on it and waited. What was that? Is it? How is it? Jon, is this alive? Tyrion asked. It is. But how? I couldn't feel anything a minute ago? I think it's my blood. This egg, it's different to the other, Jon said. The other? You have more than one, Gerion said. Is it alive too? Aye, it is, but they're different. They're my dragons, but I think I'll only ever be able to ride the white one. Ride? You mean to hatch it, Tyrion said excitedly. It's going to hatch, my lord, and soon... Lordier. He had watched on as Jon and Jaime explained the truth to the Lannisters, each reaction almost coming as expected to him. Tyrion and Jaina more calculating, and Jairion and Kevan more emotional. He had been happy to see Jairion kneel. A part of him had feared none of them would accept Jon. Where that would leave them was anyone's guess. But seeing Jon's face when Jairion pledged to him made all of this worthwhile. While the others hadn't come around yet, Loras felt they would. Tyrion loved his brother far too much, and he saw how he looked at Jon. He admired his friend and cared for him, so he would accept it. Kevan would follow Jaina, who also seemed well on the way to accepting things, which then led him to think how his family would react. Would his grandmother be angry with him for not revealing it to her? Would Margaery? Would they look for some gain from it? Was that what Jaina was hinting at? Sir Arthur Dayne lives, he heard Jairion say, taking him from his thoughts. I just spoke to him, Jon said. You spoke to him? When? Jaime asked. After I spoke to Alier's widow, Jon said softly. I saw Richard and met with him, and Arthur was there. Did he speak of me? He actually speak of Dennis Fimes, voice a little shaky. He tried to. I told him you were my hand and that there was nothing more to be said about it. Not today. Not today? No, not today. I'll not have anyone question you, especially not today. Jon said determinedly, and Lord saw both Jaime and Geryon smile while Tyrion looked on in approval. So when will we see Arthur? Jaime asked. He's busy for now, so I'm not sure. Lorch? Jaime asked. Aye. What else did Richard have to say? He's already on to the attack. Says they were hired from Essos, but were Westerosi men. Does he know who? Jaime asked. Not yet. The ships? He knows nothing on that, Jon said. Who's Richard? Tyrion asked. Sir Richard Lawmuth, my master of whisperers. Your what? Tyrion asked. You heard him, Tyrion, besides you already know him under a different name, Jaime said. Elaine, he works for you, Tyrion said, looking to Yakhmi. No. He works for the king, Jaime said. He watched as Tyrion seemed to try to control himself, his anger clear. He could understand it. Being lied to was never fun, even if it was a lie of omission. For Tyrion, his brother had lied for 4 years. For Loras, it had only been a few moons, and he had been north and could, if he wished, say it was not something he could send by raven or letter. Still, he knew his family wouldn't be pleased with him. Yet, compared to how Jaime was being looked at by Tyrion, he'd be getting off easy. Jon, could you give my brother and I the room? We'll speak in the morning. Aye, my lord, Jon said and called for him to put the egg back in the chest, and he and Geryon helped him carry it from the room, leaving the brothers to speak. They walked down the corridor and into Jon's room. He helped him place the chest on the ground and turned to see Geryon looking at them both. Jon, I meant everything I said in there. You can count on me for anything. I hope you know that. I do, Geryon, thank you, Jon said, and Geryon smiled before leaving. Well, that went better than I expected, Jon said, and Loras laughed. It did. Now it's just Margaery. And he chuckled at the look on Jon's face. Arthur! He had been surprised by the king's presence, especially for a boy who'd grown up as bastard. Even in Dorne, they seemed to either be too aggressive or worse, too meek. Jameson, though, seemed to hold himself well. He was composed, firm, and had the bearing of someone who knew who he should be. Despite himself, he found that he was thanking Jaime Lannister for taking the boy, for raising him right, something he doubted Ned Stark had been doing. He was also grateful for the advice Richard had given him, even with the neutral way he'd gone about trying to bring up Jaime. It was clear that he and the king were close. He would need to speak to him, though. Having them too close could be a problem. But he wondered if it was the man he knew who was causing that problem, or was it, as the king and Richard seemed to think, the man he thought he knew instead. He did sense a great sadness in Jameson, though. Something which reminded him of both his parents. Every loss that happened, every piece of bad news had driven Rhaegar deeper into his melancholy. Only Lyanna had ever been able to pull him from it. Jane seemed to have some of that, though he also seemed to have his mother's spirit too. She had been almost broken by the news of her family, and then Rhaegar's deaths. But each time she had come back even stronger, and it was still what haunted him about that last day, that at the end, for some reason, she had not been able to. We're in luck, Arthur, Richard said, walking back into the room. We are? Aye, it seems we won't have to travel too far to catch the king's prize. He's here! In this very town, as we speak, came to celebrate the wedding. Who is he with? His brother and some friends. But don't worry, Arthur. I have a plan. Was it him, Richard? Was he the one? He was. Arthur nodded. He fought down the urge to just storm to where Lorch was and drag him into the street to kill him right then and there. She was a child, a sweet child, and he closed his eyes, not wishing to think of it. The little girl running by, playing with her cat, her little head turning to him and asking him to play. The morning sword, he thought, as he felt the tears flow. For Rhaenys, he said, and Richard nodded. For Rhaenys, Richard said as they left the room. AN? Firstly, wow, 50 chapters. I'd never have believed it, so thanks to all of you who've joined me on this journey, and we've miles to go before we sleep. Thanks as always to those who've read, and especially those who've reviewed this story. Up next, the Tyrells arrive, Jon and Margaery have a long overdue conversation, Richard and Arthur trap a manticore, and Oberyn meets with Jaime Lannister and gets a surprise. Anonymous, thanks for the suggestion. I've actually been researching things such as that. Forgotten Prince, thanks so much. Jameson, yep, it was Edmure. The wedding will be another couple of chapters away. We still have some more arrivals. Irish Hermit, will PM you on Chapter 48's review on Chapter 49. As you can see, it did affect him a lot, and will more as we go on. As for Edmure, well, he had a better plan than usual. The pinnacle ships are like ultra valuable, so yep, he's protected them a lot. We'll see the fallout in the next Around the World chapter. True, they do need to be careful. The one thing they have going for them, though, is the amount of coin Jon has made for them. It kind of makes people go, yeah, I'd be that close to the boy too, but still, it's dangerous. As for the Lannisters, I've been setting this up for a while. Jon James stayed there when they left the North, and they were treated well. Then, while they didn't fully support Jon and KL, they didn't support Edmure, and now this, when they find out the truth about the attack, well, White Collar. Thanks so much, so glad you like it. Anarchic Mind. It was really terrible of her. Ned didn't care and seemed to leave the girls to her, but given they were nobles, they were severely underprepared. Even the little knowledge they seemed to get, they were given no context or understanding of. For example, Sansa believes that all knights, nobles, princes are good and loyal and can't be wrong. Even though technically the story is that Lyanna was kidnapped and murdered by Rhaegar, how does she not equate that in her head? How does she not think, you know what, my own damn family knows what it's like to suffer at a prince's hands, so maybe princes aren't all good and honest. She doesn't, because her education is so poor. She either never makes the connection or it's blown off. Glad you like the battle, high-tech versus low-tech. It's like the New World natives suddenly facing guns. They're just far outmatched. For Jaime, who is a warrior, he knows what this means. Outcome. Thanks so much. In the books, Jon has these berserker strength moments. It got me thinking what would happen is he had one as a powerful warg, so this happened here. It took a lot out of him, though, which is why he was out so long. But he's getting stronger and stronger. Soon on the Black Wolf, we'll see soon. But I believe, like with dragons, it diminishes them if they go to just anyone. Black Widow. It was Edmure. We'll see more as we go. Polly's Edmure. Dara Dixon, thanks so much. Adam and Yeri, I've been wanting to do the C-bit for a while. Just needed to have the right people there so it could be shown right. Battle Mage, exactly. The warging here was a last-ditch thing, and it took a lot out of him. Hence the 10-day recovery. But as he grows and gets stronger, we'll see it not harm him at all and become more powerful with it. The dragon, too, will also add to his power. Yep, it's still too early for him to face them himself, so here it was more showing the ship's power. We'll see more ghosts soon. I'm still working on his POV chapter, trying to get it just right. I'll be doing the reveals to them in their POVs, so yep, we'll see both Olenna and Marge's reactions as they happen. Joy's POV is coming. I want to explain a couple of things with her that haven't come across, so a chapter or two, and we'll see her first. Things should start quickening up soon. Guessed it was Edmure. Yep, we all should have a ghost. He was not allowing it go unpunished. We'll see soon. A Walder Povey, and he'll remember the attack, so we'll see what happened when Jon passed out. Murdo. He was actually a little clever here, so it'll take a little time to uncover. Melody, I think so too. He always seemed to be in a one-sided relationship for me. It made him a bit one-dimensional too, so it's good to show him in a different light. I hope people like the pairing I've in mind for him. Olenna will also be a little annoyed at Loras. Lol. I felt that way about Joy too. Also, apart from Ummi at one point in the books, she barely gets mentioned, and Tywin almost sees her as a burden. We'll see a more in-depth Daisy Tyrion scene soon. This was more an intro. Ashnodin. It was simply a name, a phrase, not a concept. Just like the lines Nan used to open the door in WF were in Gaelic, it's a good substitute for the old tongue, and that's it. I'm not bringing in concepts that aren't in use in the universe. There's just no dictionary for the old tongue, unlike Valyrian. On pacing, I think considering I've taken almost 50 chapters to go 4 years, the pacing I'm using is well established. It may at time quicken for events, but it won't quicken drastically as I've expanded it, if anything, character-wise. As for constant harassing, I'm sorry, but apart from Kat being how she is, and Edmure being a dick in KL, which was dealt with, What would you have people do? Tear House Tully down brick by brick for what exactly? Supremus, a trout. Gagio, thanks so much. Ron and Cavi, thanks so much. That was what got me interested. Take a single event and see what ripples that event would have. Then watch the world change because of it. The mountain should be next week, I think. As for LF, oh, he'll get his... On the time skip, once we get past certain upcoming events, some of which are important, I'll see where we are time-wise. But we've a fair few chapters until I've put down all that needs to happen soon. Dragons coming et al. Then 007. Thanks, my friend. On the attack, it was Edmure. You'll see it soon. As for the Ironborn, oh, they'll never learn, poor squids. Lol. Tyrion sent word to the Manderleys, and they too are armed. Well, hope you liked the Joy bit. We'll see her POV soon. Same to you, my friend. Silent Mayhem. Yep, most seem to have guessed it pretty well, so we'll see it explained soon enough. We'll find out about the Black Wolf soon. We're so close to the dragon being born, and some answers revealed. Agilus, thanks, the Tyrells are up next. We'll see the Jon-Marge reunion. Ned should be getting that letter pretty soon, so we'll see how he reacts. Aserion. Wow, thanks so much. So glad it enthused you to read it all like that. I felt the same at the end of the season. Figured I'd give it a go, especially since they made such a terrible mess of it all. I'm like the biggest Davos fan ever. He's almost about to be introduced. I hope you like what I've planned for him. I like you felt the same with Stannis. Though book Stannis more so, we'll see how he goes here. Zenjak, thanks so much. Hope you like the new chapters.
Yep, Theon may turn out to be a problem. He certainly has the motivation to be one.
Tansy, I'd love to be able to draw. It would be very cool to see that. Biohazard, thanks so much. Garev, Silent Reader, so glad you like it. Precorns, it was hard killing him off, but his death will be felt for a long time. Squids, no idea what they messed with. Gallo, so glad you're enjoying it. Talon, they were... Yes, it wasn't as stupid as it seemed, but yep, it will turn out to be... White Wolf. I can't see how Rickon will be born now. We'll see with the Black Wolf. As for Rob Grey, Wynn was teaching him some humility. It will make him learn and appreciate it more. This was Edmure. He actually thought it out. Just not for the reasons anyone thinks he would. I felt that Jon had in his head to tell both Juri Axley the truth after he told those back at the Rock. But with Erosier dying, he feels guilty that he didn't get to know, so told Jurier right away. True, plus they have incurred the wrath of the West now too. One more attack and we may see a war. Dunk. Word will travel and we'll see some reactions. As for the attack, it was Edmure. We'll see it being planned soon. I know, I keep thinking I should have done a bigger gap between chapters, like so the gap between Thurs and Twos didn't feel so long. 64th Vansel. I do think there is some merit in that line of fining. Also another one, which is that Jon being born under a bleeding star, with the star being Arthur. I wanted Jon to have a connection to the lost siblings and Elia. Most stories ignore them kinda. Jon barely thinks of Aegon or Rhaenys and only of Elia as an afterthought usually, so I wanted him to connect with them. Obviously Rhaenys being more of a connection. Crieri O4 por todo lo que hay una razón. Veremos la razón de Rhaenys muy pronto. Jacob Gamble. Thanks so much, so glad you like it. God of the Sea. It needed to be someone he'd miss, but not Lorch Jamesy. So it was Jorah's or Aelir's. On who did it, since most are pretty certain it's not spoiler to say it was Edmure. Vetch Chick, the floppy fish did it with help. Svenian, no, only one extra. The other was Grey Wind, who hadn't gone to Rob yet, but he is now. Agree about the Ironborn. They leave them there just so they can do the stupid story of them later on. No way, no damn way. Tywin Lannister, after seeing his fleet destroyed, leaves the Greyjoys alive. Rain/Tarbeck sets the Riverlands alight for Tyrion, but lets the fleet being destroyed go without heads. Lord Villarreal, we'll see the Tyrells next, and Sansa gets a POV too. Anya, thanks so very much. Adja Granger, I always figure a good captain would be like that. Davos would be like Ironborn, lol. Some unease you need to feel a loss for it to power you, and Jon will grow for this. Also, Walder showing his mettle. We'll see Olenna next. Hope you like Joy here. Lost in Darkness. Thanks so much, my friend. Glad you like it. Flame. Thanks, so glad you enjoyed it. Guest, did I call Fang a he? So it was a typo. I know both Lady and Nymeria were she-wolves. Guest, really glad to hear that. It's nice to see you're getting along with them. Always my fear with a new job, you can like everything else and then find you dislike the people you work with and nothing else matters. Glad you like the dreams, they're really important. He's not just being shown random places in them either. As for the attack, it was Edmure and Richard is on the case. Emil Rowling, sorry, wanted it to be a surprise, so it hit you like it did the characters, which is why it was more sudden. It was Edmure. Walder is such a big man. I mean, we saw him as Hodor in the show, and what he could do, and there is the little line when he's young where young Ned says it to Nan. If he ever fought, he'd be dangerous. So we see a little of that here. Yep, Dragon is coming very, very soon. Thanks so much, you too. Guest, so glad to hear that. Liza, no problem. Take your time, and I understand if you're busy and can't get to do one. RL takes precedence, though I hope things calm for you soon. It was Edmure. Most have figured it out, and it's not too big a spoiler. We'll see how it was planned soon enough. Yep, I also wanted to give Brienne a positive role model, just like Arya or Sansa will have. She deserves it. The shape of the new kingdom is coming to pass. No worries on the shortness either. As I said, hope things calm soon. Zan Merrick, thanks my friend. It was just a funny little thing I thought of. Also showing that despite everything he had to cheat a little. Lol lol. Walder is such a scumbag. We'll see how he reacts later on. It was hard to kill Olaf, yes it was. Edmure, and he will pay. I feel a real sailor would be like that, knowing the ship he was on was so far ahead and that he had plans in place to deal with it. Also a nice little grudge against the Ironborn too, just to add spice lol. Oh, word will spread. Also, this was just a pinnacle ship, fitted out with defensive measures. One fitted out as a warship would be something to see. Link fan, I wanted to start the second act with a bang. Also with certain events to come. Things may be a bit more action-filled at times too. We'll see Walder's POV soon. As for the Freeze, I agree. I mean, after the Red Wedding. Yep, they deserve it. But here, as much annoyance as they cause, they've done nothing wrong but still need to be dealt with. You're also right on Aerys, and Jon will struggle with that going forward. Especially when he has a dragon. Not Euron, no. We'll see soon who it was. Glad you liked it though. We'll see some Rob Pulvods as we go forward too. The Daenerys are invited as well. Yeah, it had to be one. I wanted it to be a bit of a shock to people too, so we could feel how Jon felt. With Jexley's pretty early on, I was showing scenes of them with Jon and things like him buying their meals or giving them extra gold and stuff like that. He wasn't buying their loyalty or anything, but just treating them far better than anyone had until then, so it looked like filler, but it wasn't. It's important, because when you read Jexley's what he said here, you don't go, he wouldn't do that, you go, that sounds right. It kind of brought home the concept. It's one thing for someone to say it, another to see it, and then you think which is what Jay did here. He's also seen his mother in his visions, so this brought it home to him. The plan here was not exactly how it was. You'll see it in both Kat's next POV and one with Edmure. Wandering Hawk, we'll see it probably next chapter. Certainly see the Tyrells. Victoria, thanks my friend, so glad you liked it. Yeah, the fostering I did put thought into, given the changes in the north. The Manderleys were best for Robb. Arya can only go to Bear Island. Her and Lyanna in a few years. The north will definitely remember. Lol. Also wanted Sansa to both travel with Jon, and then to be close enough to him that he'd have a reason to see her more. It was the Edmure. The dragon is so close now. Jon Marge next for certain. We'll see the reunion. As you see, Jenna Dacey had their first of what will be many talks. Brienne should arrive pretty soon too. We'll see the Hound in the next Around the World chapter. Probably next week. Oh, there are strong women around, you better believe it. We've yet to see Marge grown too. Kunoichi, thanks so much, my friend. We'll see the planning stages in Edmure's next POV. It'll be, interesting. Yep, Walder stepped up and Jorah's deserved the reward. Jon kind of felt guilty he didn't get to do it for years too, and that he didn't get to know the truth. Oh, it's a white wolf, alright, with a little twist for Jorah's himself. Yes, it took a lot out of him. I hinted at it earlier with the nosebleeds and headaches. If he expends his power too much, he's not ready for it, and it has consequences. The more he uses it, and the stronger he gets, the less it affects him. Here he went full-on, almost berserk mode in the warging and needed to recover. It's something I can't believe no one did in the history of the place. So yeah, it'll be done. Had Dacey or Sansa gone in, then Jaime or Jon would have killed some Freys. Robb will. He's learned some from it. We'll see Jojen and Mera again. They'll just be away while we're in the West. It will and has been. As for Cersei, I've still not decided, so she could turn up lol. So glad you like Sansa J. I did want to be different with her after the show. Yep, he should be careful what he wishes for, alright, lol. Oh, that was the intent, I figured. The second attack will be even more of a surprise, and yep, they will be. Tyrion got praised here, but Kevin will too. Lol, we'll see. Ghost is happy to be back with him anyway. Jon knows something, sorry. Had I done that, it would have been the equivalent of handing him a red shirt. Oh, look, Elia's just found out. He's so gonna die now, lol. Casterly Rock 294 AC. Tyrion, he sat there stewing as Loras, Geryon, and Jon left. Jon, that wasn't even the boy's true name. Jaehaerys Targaryen, heir to the Iron Throne, and not Jon Snow, bastard of Winterfell. In a way, he was happy for the boy. With everything he had done for his family, and with his temperament and personality, Jaime was right. He was what the realm needed. So then why was he so damn angry about it? Was it just not knowing? Was it that he should have guessed it? He prided himself on his intelligence, and yet he'd not for once suspected it. He had known there was more to Jon than just Jaime taking him under his wing. While unlike Jaina, he had never suspected he was Jaime's son, he had known there was something else about him. Seeing all the things Jon had done since coming west, he had thought Jaime had seen it too, seen that spark in him, and wished to see it develop. As he looked to his brother, he realized then what he was so angry about. Why hadn't he confided in him? "I'm sorry, brother," Jaime said. Why didn't you tell me? Why did you keep it a secret from me?" Tyrion said, his hurt clear despite the angry tone. "Jon needed to know first. Tyrion, I couldn't tell anyone until I told him." "Then why didn't you tell me after then? Why wait until now, Jaime?" We needed to deal with it. You remember how Jon was before we left? How hurt he was?" Imagine it, Tyrion, for 10 years. You think you're one thing, you believe yourself to be a stain on your father, only to find out you're not and never have been. Tyrion closed his eyes. He knew how that felt. That was his life, or at least it was until Jaime returned. Every day he'd not only felt a stain on his family, but been made to feel it. His father had made that perfectly clear. Was that what Jon felt? If so, he could imagine what it was like to suddenly have your world turned upside down. "I understand that, but why didn't you tell me, Jameson? Did you not trust me?" "There's no one I trust more, brother. Once Jon was told he was my king, Tyrion." "So, it was Jon's decision?" But not just his. Once he came to terms with it, he wished to speak to his uncle. He needed to know. "We talked about it then, about telling you all, and decided not to," Tyrion said slightly bitterly. "Yes, but not for the reasons you think, brother. Jon wanted to tell you himself, but he wanted to know what it means, what being a Targaryen means. He needed to find a sense of himself, Tyrion. So that's why you went north?" "Not to raise the north to your cause?" "What? No. Tyrion, there are things about Jon, strange things, gods, I don't even know how to speak of them." "What things?" he asked curiously. "Do you know what a warg is? A green seer? Dragon dreams, you've heard of them, right? You're saying Jon has visions?" "It's more than that, Tyrion. The things he can do, he sees the past, the future too. Not clearly, not all of it makes sense at first, but he sees it. I needed to know, to be sure. You don't remember Acris, Tyrion, what he was like. He claimed it too, said he saw things that he was doing this all to save us. But he was mad." "Wait, you thought Jon mad?" "Jon," Tyrion said, laughing. "Tyrion, if you'd seen him with the egg, or heard some of the things he talked about, while we were traveling, it happened more and more. He almost walked off the ship when we passed Dragonstone." "He tried to kill himself," Tyrion said, shocked. "What? No, not that. He was in a vision. He saw his family, saw them all, and was trying to walk to them. But it scared me. Tyrion, terrified me. So I needed to speak to people too. His great uncle is the maester at Castle Black." "There's a Targaryen at the wall?" Tyrion's voice was full of surprise. I mean, son of Mikar, Aegon the Unlikely's older brother. He must be gods, he must be nearly 100 name days. 96 and sharp as a tack. I spoke to the man, and he cleared things up, explained some things, some he didn't know, but that and knowing Jon as I do it was enough. So you wish to be certain he wasn't losing his mind. I.e., between that, Jon needing to know himself and not wishing to leave you with this knowledge and just race off north, that's why I waited, brother. Tyrion looked at his brother and could see he was being honest with him. He had never lied to him, never told him an untruth, but still there were things which annoyed him. "Elaine," he said, voicing one of them. "Sir Richard Lonmouth, I was unaware it was he. I was given the name by a friend." "Who?" "Barristan Selmy." "He knows!" "He knew Rosier even better than I. Jon looks like him. Not enough that it's clear yet, though it's getting more noticeable as he grows. But Barristan recognized him and pledged to him. He brought Richard in, though we hadn't spoken of him." "Gods, Jaime, I didn't think you had it in you," Tyrion said, laughing. "What?" Jaime asked, confused. "To conspire so. I've had help. From a brother, though he didn't know it. Tyrion, I really am sorry." "It's fine. Let's drink. I have a need to get really drunk," Tyrion said, and Jaime laughed. So you're with me? Always, brother, Tyrion said, pouring some wine. Sansa? She woke up excited. Fang was asleep on the end of the really large bed. She looked around the room and found the colors so much brighter than those in her rooms in Winterfell. Just like she had found the whole of the West so far. It was like once the sun came up, everything around her brightened up. Even the flowers seemed more vibrant. As she got up to dress, she shook her head. She was used to having servants to help her, but what was she to do here? Was she to dress herself? As she moved to her wardrobe, she heard Fang growl, and a moment later, there was a knock on the door and two girls walked in. My lady, we're here to help you dress and fix your hair. Thank you, eh? Lara, my lady. Lara and Sarah, she said, looking to the other girl. Both of them seemed to know exactly what they were doing, and Sansa was shocked by how well Sarah fixed her hair. She looked so different when she saw herself in the looking glass. Her mother had always tried to have her hair done in southern styles, but Sarah was a master at it. She smiled as she finished, and with Fang beside her, she walked to the hall to break her fast. Entering, she saw Jon speaking to Joy with Loras laughing beside her. Tyrion was speaking to Jaime and Daisy, and as she moved to the table, Jaime's aunt called her to sit with her. She looked to her brother, who smiled, and she moved nervously to sit beside Lady Lannister, trying her best not to let it show. My lady, she said with a small curtsy as she took her seat. Lady Sansa, please call me Jenna, the woman said with a soft smile. Jenna, she said warmly. I hope you're settling in well. I am my Jenna, thank you. We'll be heading to Lannisport after breaking our fasts to meet with Loras's family. Loras told me you're to foster with them. Aye, I am, Sansa said, as Jaina leaned in to whisper to her, I envy you, my dear. When I was young, my father didn't allow us to foster. I so wish to see a different place, to be away from home even for a short while. It is exciting, though I'm nervous too, Sansa admitted. Nonsense, my dear. I'm sure you'll take Highgarden by storm, Jaina said, and Sansa beamed at her. She ate her meal and enjoyed speaking to Lady Jenna even more. So when Lady Daisy joined in, once finished, she went to join Jon and Loras and saw that Ghost had been sitting there all the time with a black wolf. Both of them eating sausages and bacon which Joy had been feeding them. She felt guilty then for forgetting Fang, only to see when she got closer that her own wolf was under the table being fed too. Looking at her brother with the little girl almost made her a little jealous, but when she saw her brother wince as he moved, she instead rushed to him to make sure he was well. Seeing him smile at her and nod his head did reassure her some, but still, every time she saw the sling or scar on his eye, it made her heart almost stop. She still hadn't fully been told what had happened, only that her brother and his guards had been attacked and Allers had lost his life. She felt bad thinking on the man. He had been kind to her, and by what little she had heard had helped save her brother. As for Jon, while he may shrug it off, she found she could not. Seeing him laying in the bed had been terrifying. As each day went on, she feared he wouldn't wake at all, so she had stayed with him as much as she could. When she wasn't with him, she had prayed constantly. The Lannisters had no old gods to pray to, and Sansa was more attuned to the Seven anyway, so it had been the mother she had prayed to mostly. As he turned to her, looking at her with concern in his eyes, she resolved to light a candle in thanks for his recovery. Are you well, little sister? I just thinking. Sansa. Honest, they'll love you, Jon said. No, not that. I was thinking of, she said. I'm well, little sister, truly, he said, and she smiled before hugging him as soon as she was done. Joy hugged him too, and she couldn't help the laugh that came from seeing the girl's face. Now will both my girls join me so we can go welcome Margaery and her family. Margie is coming now, Jon. I Joy she is, Balerion will need to stay here, though. Her brother said, and Joy shook her head before looking to Jon and then agreeing. They took their time going down in the lift, and when they reached the bottom, the carriages were already lined up waiting for them. One thing she was glad about with Jon being injured was he was unable to ride, and so he would be joining her and Joy in the carriage. Loras bid them goodbye as he went to get his horse, and Walder came to help Jon climb into the carriage before picking Joy up and helping her in before they set off. She watched as Jon held Joy with his good arm and spoke to her as they looked out the carriage window. He called her over, and she too looked out enjoying how he explained the sights to her. She was surprised a few moments later when he closed his eyes, and as she reached over to ask if he was all right, a beautiful bird landed on the window frame. John birdie, John, pretty birdie, Joy said excitedly, and Sansa couldn't help but agree. The bird was small and brown and gray, except for its belly and chest, which were a snowy white and a bright orange respectively. Sansa looked on as the bird allowed Joy to stroke its chest, much to her delight. She looked to her brother, who was still holding her, his eyes still closed, and she reached out and touched the soft feathers herself. The bird then looked to her and Joy and then began to chirp, almost as if it was singing before it flew away. She smiled when Jon turned to her, and Joy began to tell him all about the pretty bird. When they arrived in Lannisport, they made it to the docks in no time at all. Walder helped Jon from the carriage, and together with Joy, they walked to where the rest of the Lannisters were lined up. Loras joined them on their way, and she was surprised to see a group of dark-skinned women sitting on some rocks looking at her and the Lannisters with odd expressions. Though before she had a chance to think on it, she saw the ship began to move closer. Margaery. She stood on the deck watching as the city grew ever closer, her eyes searching, though it was still too far away to see who, if anyone, was waiting to greet them. Her brother and his betrothed had also come to the deck, as had her mother, her father, and grandmother, though waited below. Her grandmother said it would be unseemly for her to be seen on deck like a wooden figurehead, something which had made Margaery giggle. When the ship had arrived in Old Town, it wasn't just her grandmother who had been shocked by the size and scope of it. Her uncles Balor and Paxter were amazed by it. Paxter especially keen to see it in action, something which did not disappoint at all as the ship simply glided across the water. Even her grandmother, who had complained on the river journey, had felt more comfortable than ever sailing the sea. As for the quarters, they were far better than any ship she'd ever heard of. The sheer size of them alone made them stand out, according to her uncle. That it had been Jon who designed it was something which she would never have believed had it not been from her grandmother's own lips. She'd heard it. They'd been having a meal one night when her uncle Paxter wondered how the Lannisters, a family not known for its seamanship, had managed to create such a ship, when her grandmother had told him, "Jon Snow, Paxter, the boy designed this ship, this the wind wheels, the mines, all of it done by Jaime Lannister's young squire." Impossible, Olenna. How could a boy come up with a ship like this? I know only what I heard. The boy designed it. A lie. Something the Lannisters put out so people wouldn't find out the truth. Then how come apart from them, the only other people who have such a vessel are Northmen? Answer me that, Paxter. I can't. She couldn't help but smile thinking about it. Jon, her friend, was as clever as he was sweet and kind. She heard her brother call to her and point, and she looked to see the people standing on the docks. The Lannisters were all there, and she saw Lord Yaxley standing beside a beautiful woman she recognized from King's Landing. Beside him were his brother and uncles, and also his aunt. Then she saw Loras and smiled, which fell quickly from her face when she saw Jon laughing with some red-haired girl. Who was she? Why was Jon laughing with her, and why did he just put his arm around her shoulder? She felt herself frown as he laughed and took his arm from the girl, and then she noticed it. He was hurt. His arm? What happened to his arm? She looked to his face and saw something. Was that a scar? What had happened to him? She looked at him, her face full of worry, and then she saw him see her, and he smiled, and she couldn't help smiling back at him. She'd speak to him soon and find out what happened. Had someone hurt him? She felt her anger rise. How dare they, she thought, as the ship made dock. As she and her family left the ship and made their way to the Lannisters, she kept looking to Jon, and was happy to see he was looking to her too. A large smile still on his face, she smiled back, and then her smile grew bigger when she saw the favor tied to his belt. He had kept it. All this time he had kept it, and she felt her chest expand as she reached her hand into her pocket to touch his handkerchief. The introductions were slow and formal, and she was almost pushing past people in her eagerness to speak to Jon and her brother. Finally, she said her hellos to Jaime and his betrothed, or was that wife? She wasn't sure, but she thought Lady Dacey looked incredibly elegant and nothing like the savage her father had said she'd be. Her brother hugged her, and while she was happy to see Loras, it was Jon she wished to see, though seeing him whisper once again to the red-headed girl annoyed her. "Lady Margaery, a pleasure," he said when she reached him, and as he took her hand and kissed it softly, she felt her heart race a little, but when she clearly saw the scar, she wanted nothing more than to reach out and touch it, to make it better. "Jon, your eye, what happened?" "A long story. May I present my sister, Lady Sansa Stark, my lady?" he said, and she looked to the girl, his sister. She was his sister. She smiled as the girl curtsied. "An honor, Lady Sansa. I hope you and I can be as good friends as your brother and mine are," she said as she too curtsied. "I do too, my lady." Jon greeted her family, and Loras hugged her mother and brother, and then they were escorted to the carriages. She had hoped she'd be allowed to ride with Jon and Loras, but her father had insisted they ride together. So she sat in the carriage with her mother, father, and grandmother, who looked excited at something. She wondered what it was, for it was certainly not the wedding, as she had made clear on many occasions. "Where are we going?" she asked, as she noticed they'd been traveling longer than it took to get to the house they'd stayed last time they were here. "It seems we're to be hosted at Casterly Rock Sweetling," her grandmother said proudly. "Why?" "Lord Jaime, it seems, deems us more important than his other guests," her grandmother said, and she saw her father's chest puff out. For her, though, all she could think was that she'd be staying at the Rock, staying with Jon and Loras, and would get to spend more time with them. She found herself looking even more forward to the wedding than she already had been. When they arrived, they were shown up to a guest wing of the castle. She was glad that Jon and Loras had decided to join them, his sister and Joy heading back to their rooms for now. Once she was settled in her room, she came back out to find Jon and Loras waiting for her, and they walked to speak to her family. She wondered if this was just a polite visit to welcome them, though, when she saw Jon holding a letter in his hand, she realized it was not. Once they got to the large room that served as some kind of solar and meeting area, they waited until called inside. She watched as Jon walked to stand in front of the table with her father, mother, and grandmother sitting looking at him. "My lord, my ladies, I've come with a request from Lord Stark regarding my sister. He would have sent it to you himself, but once he was informed you'd be at the wedding, and his letter would no doubt miss you, he asked me to present it," Jon said, handing her father the letter. She watched him read it while her grandmother looked at him, almost demanding the letter or its contents be made clear to her. "Lord Stark wishes for his daughter to foster with us," her father said, and she smiled at the thought of having Jon's sister staying with her at Highgarden. "He does, my lord. My sister would no doubt benefit from staying with a house as noble as your own, and closer relations between the Reach and North would be beneficial too," Jon said, and she watched as her grandmother's eyebrow raised. "Indeed, young Jon, my family and I would be delighted to welcome your sister to stay with us," her father said when she saw him look to her grandmother and the nod she gave him. "My lord, my ladies, Lord Stark will be most pleased, and as for myself, I owe you a debt for your generosity. My sister is most precious to me, and I'll not forget the kindness you've shown." She couldn't help but smirk. Where had he learned to speak like this? She saw her father looking at him, a large smile on his face, while her mother, too, was smiling. Her grandmother was as usual more intrigued than happy. Once done, he looked to her and they turned to leave. Though Loras was called back to speak to her parents, she saw her brother nod to Jon and smile before they left. As they were walking from the room, Jon leant in close to her and whispered, "There's something I need to tell you." Just Margaery, he seemed so serious then that it stopped her asking him about his injuries, instead resolving to ask him later. "You can tell me anything?" "Just Jon," she said, and he led her to the lift. "Can you ask your guards to stay here?" he said. And she nodded, telling them not to join them in the lift, though it surprised her. He'd asked such a thing as he always seemed friendly to her guards. They took the lift to the family wing, which was an even bigger surprise. No sooner did she step out of the lift than Ghost was beside her, with an adorable little black wolf pup following. After petting the giant wolf, she leaned down to do the same with the small black one. Both of them following as they walked. He led her to a room, and when he got there, she saw one of his guards and another giant man standing outside waiting. The giant opened the door and she walked inside before she realized she was in Jon's rooms. "I had intended to let you settle first, to wait until you were well rested from your journey. But I've kept this from you too long already," Jon said, closing the door behind him. "Jon, what is it?" she asked, a little bit of worry in her voice. "Before we left Casterly Rock to go to King's Landing, I found out something I'd wanted to know since I was old enough to want anything." "What?" "I found out who my mother was. Margaery. She was Lyanna Stark," he said softly. Then when he noticed the confused look on her face, he quickly added, "No, it's not like that. Lord Stark is not my father." If Lord Stark wasn't his father, and Lyanna was his mother, that could only mean, "Oh, Jon, oh, poor Jon," she thought, and didn't know what to say. Everyone knew the tale of how Prince Rhaegar had kidnapped the Lady Lyanna, and how King Robert had fought a war to save his lady love. Even if she had found the king to be a disappointment when she had met him, she still respected and admired him for that. But Jon, that meant, oh, her mind was racing and she found she couldn't look at him. She didn't know what to say, but Jon didn't seem upset by it. More, he seemed to be watching her reaction. "Is your father?" "Rhaegar Targaryen," Jon said, smiling softly. "It's not what you think, Margaery. They were in love. They married in secret." He walked over and bent down to take a letter from a chest and then handed it to her. "My mother's own words." She read the letter and felt tears fill her eyes. This was all Jon had to remind him of his mother. Everything she had heard, everything she had believed about the story of how the Targaryens had brought about their own end was a lie. It never even entered into her head what this meant for Jon. That there was not only true-born, but had been born the rightful king. All she could think was that he had grown without his parents, based on a lie. When I learned the truth, it took me some time to know what it meant. Some time to try and deal with it. That's why we went north. I needed to speak to my uncles to find out more about my mother, about myself. "I'm so sorry, Jon. I can't even begin to imagine how hard it was for you to find this out." It's been difficult, but also they loved me, Margaery. My parents loved me. Just knowing that alone, even with everything else that comes with it, just knowing they loved me, he said, and she nodded. They sat there silently. It was comfortable, and that's when it came to her. Jon wasn't just trueborn, he was a prince, a king. She scrambled, looking for the letter, finding it beside herself, and read it again. His mother was telling him to be the king, to reach for the throne and avenge those who'd brought his family down. Was Jon? Is that why he was her friend? Was he trying to use her family? She couldn't breathe and stood up and began pacing the room. Margaery, please, what's wrong? I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I wanted to, I swear it. I just needed some time to deal with it. Please talk to me, he said, panic-stricken. Is this why we're friends? She said, holding the letter accusingly. What? I don't understand. This letter says you need to take the throne back. Is this why we're friends? Why you've been nice to me? Margaery, he said, his voice full of confusion. Answer me, Jon, she said angrily. I'm friends with you because of who you are. You, not your family. You, Margaery, not Margaery Tyrell. Margaery, my friend, who makes me laugh, who makes me want to dance, who I think about every day. Jon said, and she looked to see if there was any dishonesty in his expression. Isley, why didn't you tell me, Jon? If I'm your friend, why didn't you tell me? She said, her voice breaking a little. I didn't know how to deal with it, Margaery, finding out your whole life was a lie, that who you thought you are is a lie. I needed to fix it in my head first, to know what it meant. It's not just the truth, it's what the truth means, what it brings with it. The crown? She asked. Not just that, I'm going to show you something which may seem strange, but I want you to know it all, he said, and she nodded. She watched as he walked over to a small chest, and then called her to join him. Inside the chest were 2 large stones, one white with blue flecks, the other a vivid bronze. He asked her to touch them. They were cold, but as she touched them, she realized they weren't stones, they were eggs. Jon had dragon eggs. She looked to him, and he took his hand in hers, and then they both touched them together. She nearly jumped back. The eggs were warm now, almost to the point of not being able to touch them, but it was the movement underneath her fingers which caused her to be a little afraid. Are they? Aye, they're alive. Jon told her of some of the other things he had gone, though, of having visions of his sister, of seeing his parents, when she began to think that perhaps he was, if not making it up, exaggerating or at worst imagining it. He walked over and took out some drawings. She blushed as she saw one of herself. It was incredibly accurate, but before she could say anything, he handed her one of a girl with deep purple eyes. She was beautiful, her skin dark and her eyes were almost staring directly at her. He handed her one of a dark-haired woman, her eyes as dark as Jon's. My mother, the other is Rhaenys, my sister, Jon said, looking at the pictures, and rarely had she seen anyone look so sad. Jon, she said, looking at him, her hand reaching out to touch his face. He closed his eye and leaned into her hand, and she found her fingers tracing the scar on his eye and frowned. What happened, she said, and his eyes shot open as he moved away. We'll speak on it another time. I've one more thing to show you. What? Don't be alarmed when you see it. It'll seem strange, and I can't work them right just yet, but trust me, he said, and then began to drag a box towards her, his one good arm making hard work of it. He opened the box and reached inside, taking out something covered in cloth and carrying it to the table. She looked on as he unwrapped it, and she saw 4 objects, 3 black and 1 green. They looked to be some sort of colored glass. What are they? Glass candles. Here, take one. Jon said, looking to her as she grabbed one of the black ones. It felt cold and not too heavy, but there was nothing special about it other than its color as far as she could see. Ready? He asked, and she nodded. Jon picked up the other 2 black ones. One by one, he placed them standing on the table before he picked up the green one, and then he looked at it, and it lit up. He looked to the 2 on the table, and they lit too. He then looked to the one in her hand. She looked on as the light burned on the top of it. There was no warmth, just light. How did you? She asked before things suddenly started to happen. She saw images which confused her. A large man was enveloped by a flock of birds. A man in black armor rode on top a white dragon. A wall of ice stretched as far as the eye could see, while beneath it, men with furs lined up. A woman wearing a white dress looked into a looking glass, her brown eyes staring back at her as she smiled. Margaery dropped the candle on the table and moved to the bed, her breathing heavy, her heart racing. Why did she just see herself as an older woman? Why was she dressed as if she was to marry? Oberyn. His daughters had told him that the Tyrells had arrived, and he had almost felt like going to the docks to see for himself, knowing it would annoy the fat flower to know he was here. But he was still on his best behavior. Though he is getting close to his limit, it was not like him to sit still, and while the brothel had held many delights, he found himself bored, and he hated being bored. He was about to go do something to relieve that boredom when he heard Richard arrive. Come to finally tell me when I can have the enormity that rides Richard. It's in progress. You want to be certain he doesn't get away, don't you? I want his head. Richard, can you guarantee me that? You'll have it. On this I swear. Oberyn nodded. One thing about Richard, he kept to his oaths. Unlike some he could name, he'd almost wanted to run Jaime Lannister through when he saw him arrive, but others could wait until he had the mountain. Was that Lannister's squire, the boy with the injured arm? It was. Yes, Jon Snow. What happened, Lannister? Get a little too rough in sparring, he said with a chuckle. I believe they were attacked by bandits. The boy is lucky to be alive. Perhaps you saw the cart with the man who wasn't so fortunate. Richard said a little angry. I did. Hard to think a lad that young could do all these things people say he has. Never underestimate the young Prince Oberyn. They'll surprise you every time, Richard said, laughing. Oberyn couldn't agree more. His own girls were perfect examples of that. He tried to picture the young boy, but found he hadn't seen him that well, just a boy beside the cart that contained a dead man. Perhaps he would see the lad while here. He knew that Elia would be pleased to see one of her brothers do so well. No sooner had he thought of his paramour than he felt himself stiffen. Even after all these years, all their adventures, no one held his heart or the rest of him in the palm of their hands like she did. Lost in memories, my prince. Future adventures, Richard, future adventures, he said, laughing. Then I shall bid you farewell and let you go adventuring. Then we should be setting off once the wedding is finished. You shall have your vengeance within the week, Richard said, and Oberyn smiled. It was an hour later that the note came, inviting him to Casterly Rock to meet with Jaime Lannister whenever it suited him best, and when Elia came in and they had sated one need, he found he wished to sate another. My love, I think it's time we bid our best intents to Lannister and his bride. Really, Oberyn, I'm comfortable. Can we not do it another time? She said, biting his earlobe softly. We can always do this another time. Come, my love. Let's go visit the lion's den. After dressing and finding his girls were nowhere to be seen, he and Elia and his guards began the journey to Casterly Rock. Oberyn couldn't keep the smile off his face as they rode there. He knew they wouldn't be expecting him and that they'd also be busy helping the Tyrells settle, and so he'd be disturbing them. It was childish, he knew, but he found that only made it even more fun. He'd be nice to a point as was needed, but being nice was boring. You seem to be enjoying this far too much, my love. Poking lions is fun. Until they bite, my love, Elia said worriedly. The Kingslayer is not his father. He doesn't have the ruthlessness of the old lion. He'll at most try to roar, Oberyn said with a chuckle. Reaching the gates of Casterly Rock, he couldn't help but think on the last time he had come here. His mother wished a betrothal, and had Joanna Lannister lived then. Right now, he'd be married to Cersei, while Elia would be Jaime's wife. As much as the idea disgusted him, as much as he loved the woman beside him, a part of him would have given anything to make that happen if it meant that his sister was still here today. My love, Elaria's voice was full of concern as he felt her fingers brush away the tears. It's nothing, he said, kissing her fingers. After some fun with the guards and the shock on their faces when he saw them, he found it was the imp who came to him first, along with his uncle Geryon, a man who, had he not been a Lannister, Oberyn may have liked. My prince, what brings you here? Tyrion said. Your note said to come at my convenience. I find this convenient. Is it not, my lord? He said with a smirk. It is, my prince. If you'll follow, I'll take you to see my brother. Lady Elia, a pleasure as always, he said, kissing Elaria's hand. He led them up in the lift to what he remembered was the family wing, leading them both down the corridor into the Lord Solar. Inside, the Kingslayer was standing with his new bride. She was a striking woman, and Oberyn felt Elia tense beside him as she studied her form. Something he would be doing too were it not for the man in front of him. Where was he when his sister was being murdered? Why did he not do his duty and protect them? Prince Oberyn, may I present my wife, Lady Dacey, the Kingslayer said. My lord, Lady Lannister in honor, he said, kissing her hand. May I present mine own paramour, Elia Sand, he said, and waited to see how she would be welcomed. My lady in honor truly, the Kingslayer said, and both she and he were surprised by the warmth of his voice and the words he spoke. Lady Elia, perhaps you would prefer to join me. I'm sure there are more enjoyable things we could be doing, Lady Dacey said, and Oberyn smirked at Elaria's reply. On that I've no doubt. There are so many enjoyable things we could do together, his paramour said, and Oberyn was surprised that Dacey just laughed it off. Taking his seat, He was surprised at the Dornish red that was poured for him, but not by the fact that both Tyrion and Girion stayed too, the imp taking a seat beside him, while behind him, Girion sat, ready just in case. Not that he had anything to worry about just now. So apparently the story you told my brother was you wished to discuss trade. Story? Would trade not be my reason for coming then? Oberyn said, his eyes looking directly at the Kingslayer. We both know the real reason you're here, Oberyn. Let's not waste time with foolish ideas. Dorne not good enough to be traded with, you Lannisters prefer to keep it in the family, so to speak. Should Dorne wish to trade, we can trade, but we both know you and your brother would rather cut your own hands off than take one coin from a Lannister. The Kingslayer said, and Oberyn laughed. Heads, we'd cut our heads off, Kingslayer. Indeed, so to our real business then. So be it. You want the mountain, he's yours, however he knows you're here, so getting him will be difficult. How does he know I'm here? Oberyn asked. My prince, everyone knows you're here, the imp said, and he laughed. So you have a plan? We're expecting Clegane to make a move on one of our gold shipments. We've set things up so when he does, he may find a nasty surprise waiting for him, Girion said from behind him. What kind of surprise? Oberyn asked. A snake in the grass, Girion replied, and Oberyn nodded. There is one problem, though, the Kingslayer said, looking at him. Which is, he said, they had better not try to take this away from him. He looked at Lannister, waiting to hear him speak. It'll cost you your life should you do it wrong. You think my life such a precious thing to me? What price my life to the life of my sister or her children, Kingslayer? What price my life to theirs, he said, and meant every word of it. My brother said you're quite fond of your own children. Prince Oberyn, that you have some that are still but babes. I do, he said, thinking of little Doria and Loreza. Their youngest babe was still being breastfed, and her mother hadn't wished to leave her behind, but had in the end reluctantly did so. Then I would like to see you grow old and watch them grow. How then do you suggest to protect me from life itself? Kingslayer, nothing will keep me away from the enormity that rides. Nothing. Not even the mention of my girls would stop me. Now I've come so far, he said determinedly. I know that. I just wish to make a suggestion if you'd listen. Very well, he said dismissively. Kill him. Don't play with him. Kill him. Let it be done with. I shall consider your words. They spoke then of inconsequential things. Oberyn looking every so often at the Kingslayer's face. He wanted to drag the man over the table, to beat him until he explained his reasons for not being with his sister. But he couldn't risk being banished, being asked to leave. He had asked his girls to behave, and they'd been able to. What say it about him should he not live up to it too? Eventually he wished to ride back to where they were staying and declined when asked to stay for dinner, much to their relief. Elia and Daisy arrived back as they were walking down the corridor. His paramour's smile, one of her genuine ones, so she must like the woman. He'd speak to her later to find out. Taking her hand, he kissed her lips fully, enjoying the feel of her in his arms and the looks of those around him. Prudes the lot of them. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw a red-headed girl walking with a small pup, while a blonde girl spoke to her excitedly. No Balon, come here, she said to something, and he looked to see if it was the pup. Balon don't, the girl said louder now, and he saw what it was she was calling to. Demon cat, he heard the imp mutter. The black cat stared at him and his heart stopped. It couldn't be. He leaned down and saw its badly torn ear. Its eyes, though, he knew those eyes. Around him voices were warning him to beware. A little girl calling for Balon. Balon, but in his head, the name like the girl was different. No Balerion, come here. Balerion don't. Sorry, Nuncle Obi. 'Tis but a scratch, Raipa. He didn't feel the cat's scratch then nor now. Didn't even register that it was not the water gardens he was in playing with his niece and her cat. Didn't hear the voices as they spoke to him or Illyria's worry. As he looked at the dark-haired girl walking away with the cat, he reached out as he watched her fade away, but he didn't feel her as his hands grasped for her. He did, however, feel the tears as they flowed. Arthur! The plan was set. Richard and his men were ready. The girl were well paid, and everything was in order, when he saw them. A Dornish girl and man were sitting in the tavern watching his prey. Richard, too, saw them, and as they waited for Lorch to arrive, he began to worry they'd need to sow something different. Luckily, though, they left as soon as the man arrived, and when he saw the fat, pig-faced man, he hated that this was the last sight that Rosier ever saw. That the princess who saw light in the shadows, who even saw the goodness in her crazy grandfather and laughed thinking him funny when he insulted her or her mother, had to see this face as her life ebbed away. Whatever Jane had planned for him wouldn't be nearly enough. This man needed to suffer and suffer terribly. A part of Arthur felt they should hand him over to Oberyn. What he would do to the man he could only imagine. But his king would make that decision and not him. So he watched as the man drank and ate, and when the girl made her way to him, he waited. That they'd needed to get a girl to look far younger than she was only reinforced just how much this man needed to die. The girl, though 10 and 9 name days old, looked no more than 10 and 2, and he watched as Lorch ran his piggy hands all over her. Even the large bag of coin they'd paid her was not enough, Arthur felt as he watched as they walked to the rooms above, the girl grabbing a jug from one of Richard's men. "When?" he said to the man sitting next to him. "Shouldn't be long. The sir will check and then let us know. The cart is ready." "Ah, you checked it yourself. This isn't the first time we've done this, you know," the man said, a little annoyed. "I know, just want to make sure this particular man doesn't get away." "Ha, don't worry about that. When the sir wants it done, it gets done." He saw Richard go upstairs and return a moment later with the girl, who quickly left. Richard motioned to him, and he and the other man moved only to see the Dornishman arrive back with 3 more Dornish women. Not bothering to wait, he followed Richard up the stairs and onto the room, finding Lorch laying unconscious on the bed. "I think they're Oberyn's daughters," Richard said. "What are they doing here?" "Same as us, most likely. Luckily, we got here first." "We'd better hurry then, just in case," Arthur said, and Richard just smiled. "Don't worry, my friend. We've done this before." "Varys?" "Aye." He watched on as 2 of Richard's men wrapped Lorch in some blankets, covering him from head to toe. Once done, they quickly made their way back down the stairs and turned left and out the back of the tavern. They placed Lorch in the cart, and Richard jumped on his horse, stopping him before he rode off. "I'll let the king know. Take him back and keep him tight. I have a feeling he's not long for this world." "What do you think he's going to do with him, Richard?" "Nothing good, Arthur," he said, laughing as he rode off. "There was a time when he may find something dishonorable in what he was doing, a time he may question it, but he found that time had long passed. There was no dishonor in justice, and this had been 10 years in the waiting. Nothing they could do to Amory Lorch would be more dishonorable than what the man had done himself." When they arrived back at the house, Arthur had Lorch chained up. Should he wake, he'd not escape. Not just because of the chains, but Arthur. Richard's men were ready. Even the Bold himself wouldn't be able to rescue Lorch. He smiled, thinking of his old friend climbing into Duskendale to rescue a king. What he was doing here was far different, though the thought behind it was the same, to serve a king. "We must ride, Arthur," he heard Richard's voice say, and he cursed himself for dozing off. "Ride? Has he, the prisoner?" "No, we have him, Arthur. It seems justice is to come far sooner than we thought. The king wishes him brought to Casterly Rock tonight." "Tonight?" "I ding. What time is it?" "The hour of the bat. We should arrive before the king says he needs him there." "When?" "The hour of the wolf, of course," Richard said, laughing. "Jon." Margaery had left confused by what he'd shown her. He worried it had been too much, but she needed to know and know it all. The problem was there was so much of it, so much to tell, and he had tried, and it had overwhelmed her. They had so much more to discuss, so much more to even cover. He had not told her of the attack or of his future plans, had barely even begun to explain the magics and powers he seemed to possess. Some of it she had figured out for herself. While he never said he was going for the crown, the letter from his mother pretty much laid that out. While he hadn't told her that he possessed other gifts, the glass candles allowed for that to be the case. He was relieved she hadn't gotten angry with him, but perhaps shock would be first. Maybe the anger was to come, he didn't know. She had agreed to say nothing, though, to speak to him again on the morrow, and then to decide what to do. "Are you coming, or what?" Laura said, walking into this room. "Coming?" "Dinner, Jon. They've already started." "What?" "They can't have. It's—" He looked to the window to see it was dark outside. Looking around the room, he saw the glass candles still on the table, the pictures still on the bed. "I need to clear this up. Will you help?" he asked, and Loras nodded. He and Loras cleaned up pretty quickly, and he was glad he was dressed appropriately and wouldn't need to change for dinner. They both hurried, and when he arrived, he immediately apologized to both the Tyrells and to Jaime and Daisy as hosts before taking his seat beside Joy and his sister. When Jaime looked to him, he nodded, and then watched as he turned to talk to Garland and the girl sitting with him. Margaery had told him of her brother's betrothal, and he smiled as he turned to see her, only to find she was not here. "Is Lady Margaery not joining us?" he asked Loras. "My sister is unwell," Loras said, and Jon could see from his expression he wasn't worried or upset. "A shame," he said, and saw his sister agree. "Margaery got ouchy, Loras." "No, Joy, she's just sleepy." "Sleepy? But it's so early," Joy said, giggling. "She's just like you were when we came back from seeing the fishies, Joy," Jon said, and Joy yawned dramatically, making him laugh. "I was so sleepy, Sansa. So sleepy." She turned to his sister, and he was happy to see them get along. I know it can make you sleepy when you go places, Sansa said, and Joy nodded before eating more. The dinner went on for a bit, and Jon told Sansa that he'd spoken to Lorch's family, and they were incredibly happy to have her foster with them, and were looking forward to showing her Highgarden and all its delights. Something which made her disappointment of not having seen Margaery tonight all but fade away when it came time for Joy to be taken to bed. The little girl grabbed Sansa's hand, saying she didn't want her to miss story time. After finishing telling them both the story of two princesses and the big castles they visited, while adding in details to make it clear it was Joy and Sansa he was talking about, Jon was called by a servant to a visitor. Making his way to the gate, he found Richard waiting for him and wondered what had brought him here at this hour. "We have him, my king." "Lorch?" "Yes, he came for the wedding. We have him." "Bring him here, Richard. Now, I need him by the hour of the wolf, no later." "Why, my king?" "It's time for him to face the justice he's avoided so long, Richard." After Richard left, he hurried back up to the main floor. Racing to his room, he wrote a small note for Jaime and waited while Jors ran to deliver it. He walked over to the chest and took out the white egg. It was almost time. He sat there waiting for Jaime to arrive, and when he did, he explained what he needed. Jaime never even questioned him, just turned to see it done. "Jaime, Arthur will most likely be with Richard." I know. You ready to face him?" "No," he laughed nervously. "Jameson, for me, there is no choice. It's not you against him, it's you. So if you can't work with him, if you can't resolve your differences, then it's you I choose," he said. And Jameson nodded. "We'll resolve them. It's time he knows the truth," Jaime said, turning to leave. "You're the best man I know. Jaime, don't let anyone convince you otherwise." It was a few hours later when everything was ready. Jors carried the chest with the eggs while Jon carried Dark Sister. They made their way down through the vaults to the one which opened out into the small cove and on through the large steel door which shut the cove off from the inside. When he had told Jaime of this place, he had been stunned. He had never known of it. Jon had found it while warged into a mouse, the little animal scurrying between the tiniest cracks in the stone. Over the years, he had come here from time to time, in his dreams as something small, without ever knowing that he'd been warging. Since he came back, though, he had looked for it, and knew now this was one of the sources of the thunder the rock was famous for. This was where Lan had snuck in, having found the cove while swimming one day. Years later, he'd closed the place up, the large steel door stopping any unwelcome visitors. The door could only be opened from the inside, so Walder stayed back while Jors followed carrying the chest. As they reached the cove, he saw him tied to the stake. "Are you sure about this, Jon?" Jaime asked before looking to Arthur, who was staring at him. "I am, but first," he closed his eyes and went searching, finding the door open and welcoming. "Rhaenys," he whispered, and felt the urgency in the response. "He's coming." "Who?" "Balerion. He needs to see this." He asked Jordan to take the eggs out and place them under Lorch. And then, as he moved forward, he stopped and told Jordan to take the bronze one away. Arthur, he asked to make a small pyre, which the knight did immediately. He stood watching as Lorch woke up, his eyes frantic as he struggled at his bindings. They stood there as the hour of the owl drew to a close, and just before it did, Balerion arrived. If there was any doubt that Lorch was the man he'd seen when warged with the cat, it was gone, as the cat attacked the bound man. Scratching his face and drawing blood, Jameson allowed the cat its vengeance. He too lost someone he'd loved. After a few moments, he closed his eyes and whispered, "It's time," to Balerion, who moved from Lorch. The man's face was badly scratched, and there was terror in his eyes. "What I'm about to do may shock you all, but it's necessary. I ask you to have faith in that at least," Jon said, turning to Richard, Jors, Arthur, and then finally Jaime, each of whom nodded as he took his sword, walked over to Lorch, and knelt touching the egg before standing up. "You took her from me. A girl, a defenseless girl, my sister. You took her from me. Took everything she would become. Every dream my father and her mother had for her. Her future. Her children's futures. Everything all gone because of you. She should be here today. She should be dancing at balls and laughing at boys. She should be here with her brother who loves her, but because of you, she's not. I damn you to the 7 hells. Damn you to suffer an eternal torment for what you've taken from me," Jad said, tears rolling down his cheeks. "I, Jaehaerys Targaryen, the third of his name, rightful king of the Andals, Rhoynar and First Men, Lord of the 7 Kingdoms and Lord Protector of the Realm, sentence you to die," he said as he raised Dark Sister. "Whatever last words you may have, keep them to yourself. I care not," he said as he stuck the sword slowly into the man's stomach. He stared in Lorch's eyes as he did so again and again, each time going just a little deeper. He never raged, never ranted, never changed his expression. Just stabbed him over and over. 100 times the man had stabbed his sister. 100 he would get in return. When he reached 9 and 40, he saw the sword covered in blood, saw Lorch almost passed out, and yet he still hadn't killed him. Leaning in closer, he pushed the sword in a final time, twisting it, moving it from side to side as the man screamed against the gag. "For Rhaenys," he said, as he watched the light fade from his eyes. He bent down to pick up the blood-soaked egg, dropping Dark Sister to the ground. As he did so, he saw Jorah move forward to help him, but he waved him off. He didn't look to see the expressions on anyone's faces. Had he done so, he'd have seen Arthur and Jaime look at him with concern. He'd have seen Richard look at him with approval. He had taken no pleasure, though, in killing Lorch. He'd enjoyed that the man had suffered, but it didn't bring him comfort. What he was about to do now would see to that. He placed the egg on the small pyre and nodded to Jorah to grab the torch and bring it to him. Kneeling down, he closed his eyes and prayed before he took the torch and lit the pyre. He took his knife and cut his hand as the flames grew higher, and allowing the blood to pool in his palm, he moved closer and threw it in to fix them. They rose even higher and higher still, and as he looked around, he was no longer on the small beach in the cove. It was the Red Keep, it was Dragonstone, it was Summerhall, and finally it was the Tower of Joy, and over again the White Dragon flew. He saw it then on the cliffs above Casterly Rock, swooping down and crashing into the flames. He felt them engulf him, felt the clothes on his back burn, felt the dragon wrap itself around him, its wings covering him completely. When he opened his eyes, he felt her on his naked shoulder, felt her as her scales brushed against him. He looked to see Jaime, Richard, and Arthur kneeling, and Jorah looking at the dragon in awe, as she chirped happily by his ear. He heard her in his head, "You woke me, little brother. You woke the dragon." "Rhaenys," he said, and the dragon chirped happily. "An. So, the dragon is here? Thanks as always to those who've read, and especially those who've reviewed. Up next, some members of the Rock find out about our new arrival, Jon and Margaery finish their discussion, Arthur and Jaime finally speak, and Oberyn explains why he broke down. We shall also see the Olenna Jaina meet, and some big revelations made to the QOT. Black Widow, yep, it had to be Edmure. The next Around the World chapter should have a POV from him. Joy coming around was always going to be fast, kids are resilient, and once she saw Jon hurt, hope you liked the Oberyn bit, and we'll see about the Black Wolf. Huntsman. Oh, I've thought long and hard what he'll say. You're not too far off with a lot of the themes of it. Kaiden, Oh Night Eyes. Thanks so very much. Battle Mage. We'll see on the other dragon. Dany will get her 3, but we'll see what the bronze is all about in a bit. Won't give them to non-Targs, I think. Like the direwolves, it diminishes them. I know non-Targs rode them, but it to me is one of those things that now in this time doesn't make sense. Earlier on the blood was stronger, now it diluted more. Jon has kind of brought it up with Yaxley, but yes, both Arthur and Barristan will hear it too. That's what I felt. I mean, them all just going, okay, cool, we're with you, Jon, nullifies them as characters. Kevin, as you rightly say, is not as close to Jon as Garyon, who has his own reasons too, so he'll need time. There's some truth to that with Edmure. Here, even though he was cleverer in his attack than you'd expect, the reason he was smarter is not what you think. Things will move a bit faster now, not sure if I'll go the full route of jumping in time. More perhaps that we'll get chapters that cover more time, so say a chapter that'll cover 6 months or a year or so, that way you still see events, plus it would allow me to slow down to if there's something important that needs to occur, rather than say a jump and here we go. We'll see our first Bloodraven, but once we're clear with these events in the West, so not sure how many chapters away, but say 5 or 6, just for argument's sake. We'll see the second half of Marge and Jon next. This was more the shock of things, so we'll see a little of the anger too. Gagiel? Thanks, and I bet you do too. James and Olenna should be next. Yeah, I think it needs to be Jaime, who tells Arthur don't think it's Jon's truth to tell, so. Unless he loses it in anger, I don't think he would. Not sure who'll be first. As for the Tullys, I don't think it's a spoiler now to say they won't be keeping the LP, they'll be getting replaced. Melody, happy belated birthday, hope you had a good one. I agree, Jason's support for Jaime is as important to him as Jaime's for Jon. The two care about each other a lot. I wanted her to have a little big sister vibe. We'll see more of it as we go. Joy will never be a fighter, but she will spend time and learn from Daisy too. I actually always liked that about Olenna. It was like, if only they were all like Marge, she's the same with Willis too. We've just not seen much of him yet. I agree, for a man who cared about his family's legacy, he really didn't care about his family. Had he treated Tyrion right, then I don't know if anyone could have stood against them until Dany arrived, and maybe only then because of dragons. I do too, it's one I've not seen done, but one of my fave book characters. It'll be a little while yet. He needs to be older before he meets them. Biohazard, thanks so very much. Edmure, I've gone back and forth on a sequel, both with the WW and War for the Dawn, or simply a different take, seeing a Jon Marge deal with the realm, so we'll see. Rosier LF wasn't in on the attack into Riverlands. Cat's letter hadn't arrived for him yet. We'll see his own reaction soon. No, we'll see them briefly arrive next, but more in the chapter after that. Still a lot to cover before the wedding. Hoster, if he finds out, will be furious as to what he'll do about it. Should he know, he'll carry out his threat. Shroud, he know. Anarchic Mind. I agree. It's funny. I always thought both girls would benefit a lot from Daisy. Arya would see a warrior who could still be a lady, and Sansa the same. Idimol would have also helped their own relationship, as Daisy wouldn't have allowed Sansa berate Arya for being how she was, and vice versa, again ball dropping by Ned. That was another one of the reasons I wanted to do something different with Sansa. I could have gone canon, but I like her and Jon and the idea of her having positive role models to see what she'll be like in a few years after their tutelage. Robb is the same principle. To see him learn from Wyman, to see him be more clever at the game. I have a pairing for Tyrion. Should get to it pretty soon. I felt the same with Joy. Was like, we could drag this out and out, but it's not fun to read, and besides kids bounce back, they can go from angry one minute to not the next. Here, once she saw Jon is hurt and had Daisy explain it to her, she was like, okay, must make Jon better. Polly's, we may see Garion's backstory with the fish next. If not, it'll be the chapter after. Jayerdov, thanks so very much. Daryl Dixon, thank you, so glad you liked it. Dragon Slayer, for me, the schedule gives me a goal to aim for, and I know how frustrating it is waiting without knowing if a story you're reading is being updated. I get not all people can work like that, but so far for me, it's been something I'm really glad to have to work to. On the Black Wolf, can't say just for now. Jacob Gamble, so glad you enjoyed it. Harper, Loras was kinda grilled here. We'll see his POV soon. But yep, Olenna won't be happy, and then we'll be happy and proud. Lol. Long Lurker, I'm just delighted that you dropped by to read. Don't worry about stats, more that people are enjoying things. I hope you continue to enjoy it. Gurav, Silent Reader, thanks so very much. So glad you feel that way. Yexlian007, thank you, my friend. I actually had a cool black and white scene wrote out, but it didn't work as Ty would have revealed Jon's identity too soon. But basically, Edmure went to them and asked them to kill Jon, and the thing with the House of Black and White, their expense is based on what you can pay and who the target is. So want to kill a king-queen, it costs a lackdamn lot. So Edmure is like a 100 dragons. I want this bastard killed. And Jekkin is like, it'll cost $1 million. And Edmure is like, $1 million for a bastard. Jekkin just laughs. How little you know, fish. Lol. Yep, no way Olenna bends without Marge as queen. It's the whole game plan for them. Supremuse, it really did. I love BF. Love his reaction in the show when Edmure fires the arrow. He's like, we're so screwed. Lol. Hope you like Lorch Sand. Foxy. Don't worry, Richard is like a cross between Columbo and the Mentalist lol. Anja, thanks so much, so glad you enjoyed it. Gallo, really glad you liked it. Lord Villarreal, that's the thing, he's her big brother, and he left her for so long, it doesn't matter if they're not blood related, that's how she feels, so, yep, she was mad, but came around. Kevin also is not a blind follower like with Tywin anymore, he's not as close to Jon, and he has more to lose now, but he just needs time. Oberyn again, not fully sure yet. I'm kinda waiting for him, Jon, to meet, to see what vibe I get. Olenna will be picking out dresses before they're finished, telling her, lol, some guy the Anon. Thanks so much, it's funny I spend a lot of time writing the responses, yet I enjoy it as much as I do the story, so for me it doesn't matter how much space they take up, but sometimes depending on what's been asked, discussed, they're longer. Hudson, we'll see more of Marge's reaction next, also Olenna. Pritchin. Yep, mainly got the Lannisters on board. As for Olenna, I really hope people like how she reacts. Vetch Chick, as you see you were right with Tyrion. Marge is in the shock phase. As for Olenna, she'll be next. The dragon is here now, so things will be interesting. As for Oberyn, we'll see. HK Blarg, oh, we'll see the mountain very soon. Guest, thanks so much. Guest, the two pups were Fang and the black one. So Sansa's pup is with them at the rock too. No, we'll keep the wolves with Starks. As for the interest in Tyrion, it will be explained soon enough. Ozier. No worries, I really wanted Jon to show the widow how much Axley's meant to him, and for Jaime to realize, and heck, but so glad it came across well. Joy, funnily enough, won't get to ride with Jon for a while, but she will get to ride with Daisy, so she'll be happy. Ghost is gonna teach the pup all sort of bad and good habits. Lol. Fang will enjoy the Reach. Here she's not so much in the background, but she knows Ghost is alpha here. In the Reach, it'll be hers. God of the Seas, this was part 1 of Marge. We'll see part 2 next chapter. As for Olenna, well, it's coming. Carrick, you're more than welcome. Guest, me too. I've missed Margaery, so it's good to have her here. She'll be staying around for a while too. As you can see, Lorch is no more, which means Arthur will soon be taking up his rightful role. We'll see Oberyn react to his surprise encounter with Balerion next chapter. You're right, it was just they need to process it. Once they do, they'll come around. Tyrion and Jaime have, Jenna basically has, without saying it, and Kevin just needs some time. Guess not sure what you mean about Ashara, Ned, and Jon, but the thoughts of Ned sleeping with a noble woman in Jon's age makes it hard for that to be just accepted. The meeting at Harrenhal was 281, so stretching it out, you can make it work that Jon is Ashara's son, but then Jon would be older than Robb, and it's always said he's not. Now this could be a lie, but if you believe Ned on the first, you must on the second. So if Jon is younger than Robb, when did he and Ash get together? It would need to be after Harrenhal, and to make him younger than Robb, it would need to be while Ned was in the Vale, while Ashara was more than likely in the Red Keep. Her traveling to the Vale or Ned doing the reverse would have been noticed. So logically, anyone can figure out that Ned, Ashara, Jon is a non-starter. Kat doesn't, because she's blinded by Ned refusing to talk about Ashara. Ned being in the war, expecting to die, and sleeping with a whore camp follower makes more logical sense than sleeping with a noble lady once he was married. Whatever about him breaking his marriage oaths, she would have to too. Bella, as you can see, he has served the first part of justice, and now his dragon is here, fire and blood. Minstrel, we'll see Arthur Jaime speak next. Zon Merrick, thanks so much, my friend. I thought about dragging out some conflict between Jen and Dacey, but neither are petty, would think they'd test each other and then team up. With Joy, also didn't want to drag it out. She was mad and upset, but after speaking to Dacey, she'd be more worried about Jon, plus she has him back now. Though until she knew her more, she'd be just a tad jealous of this new girl. Hope you like Lorch's end. As for Richard, he's on the case. Got his Columbo coat and everything. Lol. With the Lannisters, I wanted them to be real. Not just, oh, thanks, Jon, let's bend the knee, they'll come around. But not just immediately. Kevin needs to think. We should have Garion's POV next week. It'll explain the backstory, either the first or second chapter, but next week for sure. You think he reacted to the eggs, wait, and you see his reaction to a dragon, lol? Arthur, Jaime, and Olenna's reaction up next. Kunoichi, thanks so much, my friend. That's exactly it. It's like being the youngest child. They're always going to be spoiled. As the only girl, she's going to get it more than most, and Jon himself is mostly to blame. He indulges her a lot, so she's not going to like it when he doesn't. Here it was also Jon's fault in a way. He brought Sansa into their special time, story time, so she really wasn't going to like it. Though once Balerion gave the nod of approval, she's cool now. Can't say as it may spoil things, but she has convos. I really wanted to show how much he actually meant, so having Jaime step up too was important, as he knew how Jon felt. But it's cold comfort. Had thought of making them more antagonistic at first, but it didn't suit their personalities to me and would be forced. Instead, watch out west. Lol. Loras and Jon too will fanboy over Arthur. Here he was still in the serious mode after Allur's widow so shut down, but soon he'll fanboy just as much as Loras will. Brienne too. Arthur's Jaime is next. Won't say what it is about Tyrion just yet, but it is something, as you can see. He was upset about that, and a little put out that Yamis may not have trusted him. He and Dacey will be fun. Jaina may have an accomplice in trying to marry him off. Lol. Jenna is practical, and she and Jon get along really well. She'll come around. That's exactly it with Kevin. He's grown and has more to lose, but he's not just blindly following like with Tywin. He'll be fine once he thinks on it. As for Garion, well, Joy won him for Jon long ago. It'll come up more about the children soon. Marge first, as you see. Olenna is coming. Richard will always travel. There are things he can't allow those under him to do. Though he will get help soon too. Oberyn will be up again next. We're getting really close to the mountain. Victoria, thanks so much, my friend. I'm a big Arthur fan. Him and Jaime working together will be fun. There'll be an epic spar coming soon. Tyrion will help tremendously there, as will Genna for teaching Jon some things he doesn't know. Marge will be happy. So glad you like Joy here. That's it. Exactly, she's a little girl, she's been spoiled, and she has flaws, so I'm glad you see that. Tyrion won't go to Dany, he has no need to hear. Olenna will be next. On the women aspect, I don't understand why only one would need to be strong or to have their own strengths. It's one of the things I dislike most about Jonsa/Jonarys. Both stories need to portray the other as weak. In Jonarys, it's not as bad. Dany is a queen with dragons and a large army. She should have a power imbalance with almost everyone. In Jonsa, though, there's a tendency that every other woman pales in comparison to Sansa. She's smarter, more political in tune, or more beautiful or desirable than anyone, and it annoys me because everyone has their own strengths. Take Jenna or Dacey here, two strong women. Jenna can't do what Daisy can and vice versa, but neither should be diminished by it. They're both going to shine at times and not at others. Credo, Tyrion ciertamente no lo hizo. Outcome should be next chapter for Olenna. Irish hermit. I agree on the Blackfish. The problem is he is loyal to his house, so keeping him away from it is where it gets difficult. As for Edmure, he has no idea what he's done. Even thinking Jon is a bastard is no excuse. It's clear should anything happen, the Lanstas would react. When the truth outs about what he'd done, he's screwed. Once Arthur and Jaime speak, next chapter, then he can speak to Jon about Ashara and Cregan and Melisandre too. So we're looking after the wedding, so a few chapters away. I always felt that too. As soon as it became a thing, she'd sell Jon out. Certainly given the events in canon, she'd have done it in a heartbeat. Some people assume she'd be different, but I doubt it. Certainly not after any amount of time. I mean, right at almost the end, she was still arguing against Jon being named Rob's heir. Her jealousy and bad feeling for him was too strong. It's funny, despite most of the plot being laid down, she's actually not had her fate resolved by me yet. There are a number of different options, but I, well, as of right now, don't know which one it'll end up for her. It won't be good, though. Jerian will have a POV next week. Either Tuesday's or Thursday's chapter. It'll give the backstory and show what happened. I'm keeping Arthur Oberyn apart for now, since once he's seen the cat is out of the bag, so to speak. Gina was. Jaime discussed telling the truth a while ago and had Girion threaten Cersei with it, but in reality, they know what Robert will do, so on their side, no, they'd not tell on them, fearing what he would do. Casterly Rock 294 AC. Arthur, he stood watching as the king spoke, trying not to stare at the white dragon as it crawled on his shoulder. His clothes had burned away, but there was not a mark on him. Arthur wasn't sure what it was he was more in awe of. The dragon the king had brought back into the world, or the fact that he'd seen him engulfed by white flames, and yet he was unburnt. He looked to the body that Richard and Jors were untying from the stake, and then to the king who was wrapping himself in a cloak. He still wasn't completely sure of what he'd seen. 1 hour previously. Arthur stood with Richard as the king made preparations. He was stunned by the appearance of the second dragon egg. Yes, he knew of it, but he also knew the trouble Rhaegar had gone through to get the white one. When the guard Jors brought the egg back, he was surprised, but listening to what the king said to Lorch, he felt his own anger rise. The king spoke calmly, though. When he saw the sword enter the man's stomach, it shocked him, and watching the repeated stabbings made him very nervous. He looked to Richard, who seemed to be enjoying it, and then to Jaime, who, like him, seemed to have a worried look on his face. But it was watching as the king carried the egg to the fire, watching as he dripped his blood into the flames that scared him the most. He moved at the same time Jaime did, but it was too late. The flames swept over the king before they made it even a couple of feet. The cry from Jaime was loud and piercing, and he could see the hurt in his former brother's eyes. "He's moving," Richard said, his voice choked from his own emotions at what he'd seen. "What?" "Arthur. He's moving, look." What he saw then would be something he'd remember to the day he died. The king walked out of the fire. His clothes had been burned away, but he was unharmed, and on his shoulder there was a dragon. He looked to Richard and to Jaime, who was now smiling broadly and without thinking. He knelt. It was true. It was all true. He was everything Rhaegar had said he would be. Jaehaerys was the prince that was promised. He was the song of ice and fire. Now, once Richard and Jors had untied the body, they walked back over to the king and awaited further instructions. Arthur looked to them both and knew should he raise a looking glass to his face, he'd be wearing the same expression. "We need to have him delivered to the Dornish. Should it be here or Dorne?" the king said to loud chirps. "Dorne it is," he said, and Richard nodded. "My king? The dragon? What are we to do with it?" Arthur asked. "She stays with me. My sister stays with me," the king said, and Arthur looked at him in confusion. "Jon, what do you mean?" Jaime asked. "Rhaenys. She's not a normal dragon," the king replied. And Arthur couldn't help but agree. Not that he was an expert, but didn't they have 2 legs, not 4? "I don't understand," Jaime said. "I can't explain it, but somehow she's Rhaenys," the king said, and the dragon chirped for quite a while. He watched as the king began to laugh and then turned to him. "There was a feast for her second name day. Jaime, you were her Kingsguard, and Arthur, you were with my father. Richard, you and Miles had gotten her a book full of colorful images of Dorne. After you gave it to her, she was showing father when she noticed the cake. She was hungry, so she reached out and grabbed a chunk of it. The cake was messy, and she had nowhere to wipe her hands, though there were 2 pristine white cloaks near the king said, as he laughed, while the dragon chirped again. Arthur looked to Jaime, who had a smile on his face. Richard too, all of them remembering the day in question. For the rest of the night, both Arthur and Jaime had walked around with the princess's handprints on their cloaks. It was one of the few times he remembered Rhaegar be happy that weren't when he was with Lyanna. Elia too was having one of her better days. For over 10 years I've been without her, I'll not be parted now, the king said, then, and Jaime nodded. We can keep her in your rooms for now. Ghost can keep people away, but as she grows, she'll stay down here, the king said, and the dragon no Rhaenys. Rhaenys chirped again. We'll need to tell Tyrion. He won't forgive me if he knows there's a living dragon here, Jaime said, laughing. We should head inside, Richard said. I'll see to Lorch. My king, his death, did it have to be? Was there no other way? Arthur asked. 100 times he stabbed her, Arthur, 100. She was a little girl and that monster stabbed her over and over again. Only death can pay for life, and his death was far more merciful than it should have been. Arthur nodded in agreement, and they headed inside. Richard hurried on ahead, eager to get the large man to help carry the body. When they reached him, Walder looked at the dragon and smiled. The king asked Jors to wait by the door while Walder and Richard walked back to the body. When he said it would leave the king unprotected, Jay laughed, saying he was with 2 of the greatest Kingsguard that ever lived. He'd be safe enough. I'll speak to Tyrion later. You two need to talk, the king said, and Jaime nodded as he walked on. The king stopped him, though. Arthur, Lord Jaime is the reason I'm here, the reason my sister is here with me now. You have any idea how much that means to me? How much he does? I do, my king, Arthur said, and Jay nodded before walking to his room. He looked to Jaime and followed him to a large room. Entering, they sat across the desk from each other, the first time they'd speak together in almost 10 years. He found his mouth dry, almost unable to form words, but the one question he'd always wanted to ask was now the only thought his mind could form. Why Yaxley? Because it had to be done, Arthur. Do you know who Axley named as his hand? Who he chose to be the second most important person in the realm in those last days? No. Rosier. The alchemist? Chief alchemist, head of the guild of pyromancers. Now why do you think that was? I don't know. Wildfire Arthur. You know how obsessed with it he was. What he'd do once he'd seen it used, Jaime said, and Arthur could hear the disgust in his voice. He felt it too, what Ares had done to their queen. Gods the screams. I don't understand how this leads to you betraying your oath, how it leads to you killing your king, he said accusingly. Because had I not, then he would have burned the city to the ground. That was his master plan. Arthur, his master fucking plan. Burn over 500,000 people to death, in the hopes it would kill his enemies. Jaime said loudly, but he, you, Elia, and the children, all of you, would have been killed too. He didn't fucking care about me, certainly didn't care about the half-breeds. Or don't you remember what he called Rhaenys when she was presented to him? What was it he said? Take her from my sight. She smells Dornish to me. The man was fucking mad, Arthur, and we shamed ourselves by serving him. So you killed him to relieve that shame, he said dismissively. You think I care about shame? I'd have worn shame from that day in the throne room and done so gladly. I should have not been forced to wear it, but I did, my brothers. Where were you, Arthur? Where were you when I needed you? When she needed you? Where were you? I was in Dorne guarding the king. Not then, Arthur, not then. When Rowalla needed you, when I needed you, where were you then? Jaime said, his voice breaking. Arthur mumbled, unable to answer. That boy, Arthur, our king. You know what he told me. Him a boy of 10, name days old. You know what he told me. Our oaths were shit, Arthur. They meant shit. If we couldn't protect her from him, what use were we? He was the king. He was a fucking monster, we swore an oath. Arthur, an oath to protect the innocent. What comes first, that oath, or an oath to a king? I killed Aerys because he ordered Rossart to set off the wildfire to burn them all, but I failed Arthur. I failed because I should have killed him the first time he touched her. Arthur looked at the hurt in James' eyes, the self-loathing that he himself felt. He had held his own blade back because Rhaegar willed it. But Jaime was right, the king was right, and he and Rhaegar had been so very wrong. Elia, the children, what happened? I didn't know, Arthur, you must believe me. I didn't know. I never could have imagined he'd do that. After killing Aerys, I thought it was done. I thought I'd save them. I didn't. I should have. I didn't know, Jaime said, his eyes pleading. For over 10 years, I've cursed you, Jaime. Cursed the day I knighted you. I thought you my biggest mistake, my biggest failure. I'm sorry for that, for what you had to go through alone, brother, Arthur said. And as they sat and spoke of other things, it was not only Jaime's tears that were spilled in the room that night. Margaery, After everything he had told her, she had tried to be there for him, but it was hard, what he'd said, what she'd seen. It was all too much, too confusing, and so she had skipped dinner that night. When Loras had asked her why she had told him she needed time, and he seemed far more understanding than he should have been, she realized then he knew he had told Loras before her, a part of her mind said, and this made her even more upset. As she lay in her bed that night, though, things became clearer to her, and she almost slapped herself when she realized the mistake she'd made. She had accused him of using their friendship, but he hadn't. Jon had been her friend for years. He had learned the truth moons ago. She felt both relieved and ashamed that she'd been so wrong about it, that she'd said that to him. Just thinking of it made other things more clear. Loras knew because he had told him when they were north. Had she been there, he'd have told her too. When she woke the next morning, she felt so much better. There were things she needed to discuss with Jon, but the realization that he had been telling her the truth, that he liked her for her, made her smile just thinking about it. After washing and dressing, she made her way to break her fast, and was surprised to see Loras there. More surprising was that Joy and Sansa were with him. She looked but was disappointed to see that Jon was not. "Margie," Joy said excitedly when she saw her. "Good morning, Joy. What brings you here?" "Loras did Margie," Joy giggled. "Then I must thank my brother." "Come meet Sans, Margie." "Sansa?" "Sans," Joy said, nodding. "Lady Margaery," Sansa said, standing to curtsy. "Call me Margaery, please. Lady Sansa, we shall be spending a lot of time together when you come foster." "Margie," Joy said, looking at Sansa. "Margaery," Sansa said with a smile. "Margie," Joy said, giggling. She said hello to her brother and sat down. Garland and Leonette arrived along with their mother a few moments later. As they were eating their meals, she was surprised that Ghost wasn't following Joy, nor was the little black pup. "Is Jon not joining us?" she asked Loras, who told her he wouldn't be. When she asked about Ghost, Joy got a little pout on her face. "Ghost with Jon and Balin too." "Balin?" "Balerion, Joy's cat," Loras said. "Balin," Joy said, shaking her head. Margaery couldn't stop laughing. Apparently the girl now had shortened even the cat's name. Jon was lucky his own was already short. "Is the little black wolf pup yours, Sansa?" "No, he has no owner. My pup is gray. She's called Fang," Sansa said proudly. "Will Fang be coming to Highgarden with you?" If it's all right with your family," Sansa said, a note of worry in her voice. "Willis will love her. A dire wolf up close, he almost swooned when he met Ghost." "Your brother met Ghost?" Sansa asked. "When we were in Old Town for my Aunt Lynessa's wedding, we met he and Jon while they were collecting Lynessa's present. The coat, it was beautiful, was it not? Lynessa allowed me to put it on once it was far too big, but so soft," Sansa said dreamily. "It was a wonderful, thoughtful gift," Margaery said with a smile. "You and my aunt are friends?" "Lady Lynesse was good enough to tell me of things in the South and how what I thought about it was a little different from the truth. We write to each other. I'm really looking forward to seeing her and the babe." "Babe?" Margaery asked, excited. "Damn, I knew I'd forgotten," Loras said, and Margaery glared at him. "Loras," she said, annoyed. "Loras," Joy said in the same tone, and then laughed, forcing Margaery to giggle. "I'm sorry, Marge, I really did forget," he said apologetically. "Fine, you are forgiven for now. Are they really coming, Lynesse and the babe?" she said, looking to Sansa. "They are. They couldn't attend Daisy's wedding in Winterfell, but they're coming with the Manderleys on one of those ships. The ones Jon came up with." "Aye, those," Sansa said, and Margaery nodded. "Jon has a ship?" Joy asked, and Margaery explained to the girl who nodded along. Once they broke their fast, Margaery walked with them back to the family wing. She needed to speak to Jon, and the longer it went on, the more nervous she felt. Speaking quietly to Loras and telling Sansa and Joy she'd talk to them soon, Loras pointed her in the direction of Jon's room. While she had been there only the day before, she found herself unable to remember exactly how to get to it, and didn't wish to be found walking around the family wing like an unwanted guest. After a few moments, she saw Jorah standing outside the room, and he knocked at the door for her. Seeing Jon open it, she smiled. "Good morning," she said, and Jon smiled back at her and led her inside. "Don't be scared. She won't hurt you," Jon said, and she looked at him confusedly before she saw it. Is that a dragon?" she said before she fainted. Margaery, are you all right? Please talk to me," she heard Jon's voice as she came to. "Jon, I had the most wonderful dream. I dreamt of dragons," she said, smiling, as she reached up and touched his face. He laughed, and she looked around. She was laying on his bed, and as she moved, she saw it crawling on his shoulder. It was so beautiful, its white scales and blue wings, just like the one she'd seen yesterday. She realized it, then it was real. What she'd seen was real. The dragon. The man. The man was Jon. She'd seen Jon riding a dragon. She looked to the dragon again and saw it look at her. Its head tilted to one side before it chirped, and Jon laughed. "It's beautiful, Jon." Jon said. She smiled. Jon got her some water, which she drank eagerly, and as she sat up on the bed, he sat down beside her. The dragon jumped from his shoulder, its wings not able to make it fly yet, and as soon as it reached the bed, Margaery threw her arms around him. I'm sorry for yesterday, for what I said. I know you're my friend. I didn't meant it," she said quickly as she felt his arm touch her softly on the back. "It's fine, I'm sorry too. I should have eased you into it. I wanted you to know everything, but I should have given you more time." "What does this mean, Jon, will you? Are you going for the throne?" she said, still not taking her arms from him. "I am. I have to, Margaery. I need to," he said, and she nodded. "I'll help Jon, any way I can. I'll help. Grandmother, too. My family, we were always loyal to yours." "I know. Do you think I should tell her?" "We should." "We?" Jon said. "We together," she said, determinedly. "Aye, together," he said, and she felt the butterflies in her stomach. Together, she thought, and leant her head on his shoulder. Jenna. Having the Queen of Thorns in her domain was too good an opportunity to resist. Jaime had said that the Tyrells were on the outs with the crown, and if so, then bringing them onto their side would be game-changing. With the West, North, and Reach together, Robert would fall. At best, he'd have the Vale, Stormlands, and Riverlands, but they would split along the same lines as they did in the Rebellion, and without the North, the other three kingdoms wouldn't be enough. While she had been stunned by the revelation from Jaime, she had to agree with him. There would be no one better than Jon to rule the realm. Joffrey was out of the question, and while Tommen could turn out to be different, he was an unknown. Myrcella, too. The realm wasn't ready yet for a queen. So she had asked, and been happy with the answer to how her grandniece and nephew would be treated. She had no fear of Jon harming them. It wasn't in his nature. But she needed to know that once he was king, that he'd look out for them. Knowing he was leaving it to Jaime had been the deciding factor. So she was in it now, the great game, and it was time to meet and evaluate one of the major players. She was under no illusions of the cost of the Tyrells' support. She was only happy that the children already seemed more than fond of each other. Her own wedding showing what happened when the match was a terrible one. So as she watched the Queen of Thorns shuffle towards her, she smiled politely and willed herself to be on her best behavior. "Lady Olenna, please take a seat," she said as she watched the woman sit to join her in breaking their fast. "Lady Jenna, I thank you for the invitation. Once I knew you'd be staying with us, my lady. I looked forward to it." "Me too," Olenna said. She looked then to the two giant guards and cursed. She not asked Jon to borrow his own giant. The man he'd returned from the north with, easily the match of these two. She had arranged for a plate of soft cheeses for Olenna, knowing the lady preferred them than the more hearty meal she herself was having. They ate and made small talk, something neither were very good at, and once finished she looked to see Olenna staring at her. "I wonder if your guards wouldn't be better suited elsewhere, Olenna," she said, dropping formalities. "I find I enjoy my meals more with them present, Jaina." "I think they stifle conversation," Jaina said, looking directly at her. "Left, you and right go guard the door, make sure we're not disturbed." "Left. Eric or Eric, it's too confusing for a woman of my age." "I doubt you've ever been confused, Olenna. You haven't met my son too often." "Nor you my husband," Jaina said, and they both laughed. "I've missed you, Jenna. There are so few ladies of substance around." "You too, Olenna. We lost too many of the good ones." "Your good sister was a fine lady," Olenna said, and Jaina nodded. "I hear you're not too enamored with our king." "Fat oaf, stupid man too, wants to marry into the Starks of all people," Olenna snorted. "The Starks are rising. Their bastard is rising further and faster." "Jon is a special boy," Jenna said, and smiled. "That he is, your family is very fond of him." "Why would we not be? He's made us rich." "You were already rich." "Richer then," Jaina said with a chuckle. She nodded to the tea, and Olenna shook her head, so she poured herself a cup, while Olenna had another piece of the soft cheese and washed it down with her wine. "Your nephew is more than I expected." "They both are. Have you met Tyrion?" "Only briefly. What he lacks in height, he more than makes up with wit." "Times are changing, Olenna. One wrong move, and a family may find its fortunes fading." "Indeed. Not, however, if you pick the right side, Jaina." "And what side have you picked?" "Why, the same one as always, whichever will help us grow the strongest." "Then it seems we'll be on the same side," Jaina said, and poured 2 glasses of summer wine. "What are we drinking to?" Olenna asked. To the wars to come, where we will roar and you will grow strong. To fire and blood. Olenna said, her eyebrow raised as she looked at her. Fire and blood, Jaina said, and watched the smile that appeared on Olenna's face. Elia, he had been so quiet since returning from Casterly Rock that had she not been there herself and seen what he had gone through, she had been even more worried than she already was, but she had been there and seeing him like that had scared her. For a moment she feared he'd been poisoned, given some potion, or had something dropped into his drink, but Oberyn knew more of poisons than anyone she knew, so the chances of someone being able to slip him something which affected him so was unlikely. Which had led to even greater worries that he had lost himself somehow. Seeing him fall to his knees, hearing him call out for his niece had almost broken her heart. That he had done so in the company of Lannisters was something she knew he would be even more upset about. But she had been unable to speak to him since then, unable to see how upset he was or how hurt he was. He had all but shut her out of the room. When his daughters came to see him with Ser Daemon, she had noticed their guilt right away. They had been so excited at the thoughts of catching Lorch, they had celebrated it and written their father a note telling him it was done, only for the man to disappear. She had thankfully found the note before Oberyn. The last thing he needed was disappointment right now. Dismissing them, she went back into the room and found him laying on the bed, almost curled into a ball, tears still in his eyes. My love, please talk to me. Tell what it is that ails you so. Let me comfort you, please, she said pleadingly. She was so small, so young. How could they? How could they? A girl like her. She was the sweetest girl. Elia, the sweetest girl. Oberyn said, his voice hoarse and raspy. We'll make them pay, my love. Make them all pay. I swear it. On blood and sand. I swear it. He just nodded and wrapped her in his arms, and she held him sobbing as he fell to sleep. When she awoke the next morning, he was sitting at the edge of the bed looking at her, a smile so large on his face that she jumped up and kissed him, so happy was she to see it. Where is he? Who? Lorch, I found the note. They have him. Where? Oh, my love, I tried to keep it from you. They never had him. They saw him and wrote the note before they actually had him. They let him get away. They let Rhaenyra's killer free. The fools. The damn fools, he said angrily. He's here somewhere, my love. In Lannisport, we'll find him again, she said, and he nodded. What happened, Oberyn? What did you see? What pained you so? The cat Elia. The cat was hers. Balerion. I was there when she was given it by her father. Her eyes, they were so happy. Balerion the Black Dread Reborn, I said. And from then on, that's what she called it. I know that cat, many's the time it scratched me, or anyone who got too close to Rhaenys. Seeing it, I got lost, he said softly. How is it here? I do not know. The girl she played with it, it seemed happy, even if it was a Lannister that plays with it now, he said a tad bitterly. Hill? What? The girl, her name is Joy Hill. It seems your niece's cat has found its way to one of my sisters. She smiled, and so did he. I need to know more, know why it's here, but first I need to find Lorch. My love, what of the mountain? I thought you didn't wish to cause a stir. I may have done enough of that last night, he said with a soft laugh. Are you feeling well now? I am, my love, thank you for giving me time, he said, moving forward to kiss her. Of course, my love. They were sitting down breaking their fast when the girls arrived, and she had never seen him so angry with them. His daughters without her were willful, as were the ones they had together. All but Sorella had earned his ire at some point, but here he shamed them, hurt them with his words, and she waited until they left, thinking he'd gone too far. Was that necessary? It was. We're in a dangerous place. We cannot play games here. If I will not, then neither should they. You hurt them, Oberyn, she said, and he nodded. I did not do so out of spite, my love. They needed to know, needed to learn. They know they failed me, that I think less of them today than yesterday, but it will spur them on to be better tomorrow. They may resent you for it. They will live because of it, and I can handle resent if my girls live the long lives their cousins didn't get the chance to. Rousier, speaking to Arthur, had been emotional, but it had been something he had wanted to do for the past 10 years, to finally be able to tell the truth, to speak to his mentor, and to make peace. He had never dreamed he'd get such a chance, and to not only get one, but to be accepted and acknowledged for what he did was freeing. Once they'd done talking about things, Arthur asked to speak to their smith and have a full helm made, one which covered his face. He would be staying here from now on, and Jaime rejoiced in that. Jon would have the best protector he could possibly have. He and Loras would also have Arthur to help with their training, not to mention Jorz and Walder too. While Jaime trained every day with Jon and Loras, he never had the full amount of time he wished to give to them, his duties taking him elsewhere. Now, though, they'd have Arthur too, and they could expand their lessons, allow them to experience other weapons and forms. When he arrived at his room to find Daisy still asleep, he smiled as he undressed and got into bed beside her as quietly as he could, though not quiet enough as she turned smiling at him. "You're late. I had much to talk about." "Want to talk to me?" she said, her hand undoing the lace of her nightgown. "Oh, we can do much more fun things than talk, I think," he said as he moved to her. "Yes, please," she said, as his lips found hers. As they lay there drifting off to sleep, he knew he was right to wait until morning. The things that had happened last night, what he had seen and what they meant, all of it he'd tell her in the morn. It seemed like only moments later he woke to sunlight beaming in through the windows. Daisy was already dressing, and he reached his hand to hers and pulled her back to the bed. "We're late," she said. "I'm lord, and you're my lady. We're allowed be late," he replied, and she laughed. "There are some things I need to tell you about last night, my love," he said seriously, and she nodded. "What things?" He told her then about the dragon and Lorch, about why Jon had killed him and how he did so, and about Arthur, about what he had discussed with him and how his sister and son would be coming soon to join them. When he told her who was the boy's father, it left her almost as open-mouthed as when he'd told her about the dragon, but she nodded and he continued. Once he was done, he waited and worried about her responses. Worry, it seemed, was for nothing. Lorch got what he deserved, and Jon was right to do it himself, she said first. "He was?" he asked, though he agreed. "Aye, he who passes the sentence swings the sword. That's how it is in the north, and Jon may have spent much of his life in the west, but he is of the north." "The dragon?" "If we can keep it a secret until it's big enough, it'll be a blessing. Robert won't be able to stand against a dragon," she said, and he nodded. "Arthur? How do you feel about him?" "All my life he's who I wish to be. I never thought I could. Having him here will be good for Jon. It'll keep him protected. I'm happy he's alive, and we got the chance to clear things up. We're not there yet, but I think we can be brothers again," Jaime said, and she leaned in to kiss him softly. "The boy worries me, Amy. If what you say is true, he's trueborn. Will he want Winterfell? And if he does, what do we do?" "I don't know. We need to speak to Ashara and Jon too, but Arthur said he'll talk to him about it. I can't see Jon supporting his claim. Not now he's made his peace with Ned. Not now he's pledged to him. So I don't know." Me either. What do we do now?" "I need to talk to Jon. I think he planned on telling Margaery." "They're good together," Daisy said. "Aye, she's a good friend," Jaime said, and Daisy laughed. "What?" "Gods are all men slow, or is it just you? They're far more than friends." "What they can't be. He's only, she's only. They're too young," he said, confused. "Aye, but they're a love match, if ever I saw one. Trust me, in a year or two they'll know it too," Daisy said, and he looked at her to see she was being completely serious. "Do you really think so?" he said, his brow furrowed. "Aye, I do, Jaime. What are you thinking?" "It's what she'll want, Olenna. It'll be her price to back Jon. If they're already a love match, it makes it better." "No, Jaime, you can't. They don't know it yet. If you do this, then they may never know it." I need to talk to my aunt. We can do this, but you're right. I need to figure this out."